No one had expected Yi Linfeng to mobilize his faith energy and charge straight at Tang Wan'er. Divine power surged around Yi Linfeng, causing space itself to collapse. The hidden dragon warriors were horrified to find themselves fully immobilized, unable to twitch or even blink. Ha ha ha, when I descend, all life must kneel before me, Yi Linfeng declared arrogantly, waving his hand, causing an overwhelming divine pressure to crash down. However, Tang Wan'er remained unfazed. While Yi Linfeng and Long Chun clashed, she had been gathering power quietly, feeling an inexplicable intuition that he might strike at her. Now that he had, a full moon manifested in her heavenly fate disk, and wind energy surged wildly around her. Just by gripping the hilt of her sword, Tang Wan'er silenced the wild wind energy. And the moment she drew her sword, the world split cleanly in two. Her sword strike sliced spacetime and shattered the laws of the 10,000 Daos. Wind God's blessing, wind moon slash. Tang Wan'er cried out, channeling all the power she had been storing up into this one attack. Yi Linfeng's domain was instantly shredded by her attack. Fierce sword chi, infused with wind and divine power, shot toward him. As a disciple of the Wind God Sea Pavilion, Tang Wan'er inherited the Wind God's power. Moreover, in this place, she had the Wind God's blessing, so she could also summon divine power. Though her cultivation base limited her ability to wield it fully, this sliver of divine power was enough to cut through Yi Linfeng's domain like tofu. To Yi Linfeng, Tang Wan'er had been nothing more than a pretty distraction, someone he could use to manipulate Long Chun. He never expected her strength to rival Long Chen's. But all of a sudden, this little kitten transformed into a tiger that wanted his life. At first, he had held back, intending to capture her alive due to her importance to Long Chun. But now, his complacency was costing him. Seeing Tang Wan'er's sword slice through his domain, Yi Linfeng was shocked. He hastily retreated, forming hand seals to summon 18 divine shields, each forged from pure faith energy. However, Tang Wan'er's sword chi cleaved through them as easily as if they were paper, slicing toward his Yi Linfeng's. He twisted just in time, narrowly avoiding a fatal strike, though her blade clipped his ear. Blood sprayed as the sword chi tore into his shoulder. Tang Wan'er's fierce counterattack stunned everyone. No one had expected her to possess such terrifying power. Outside the barrier, even the audience was speechless. Everyone except Yi Linfeng. Smiling, he muttered, "The Wind God's blessing? Is it truly just a blessing?" Tang Wan'er shattered Yi Linfeng's domain with this attack, relieving the pressure on the Hidden Dragon Legion. With their freedom restored, they hastily retreated, knowing their presence would only hinder Tang Wan'er and Long Chun in the battle. At this moment, Long Chun also caught up with Yi Linfeng. To prevent Long Chun and Tang Wan'er from launching a coordinated attack, Yi Linfeng summoned countless barriers imbued with spatial energy around himself. These barriers served as a potent life-saving technique, designed to transport anyone who breached them to unknown locations. On the battlefield, this maneuver was nearly impossible to counter for someone at the same cultivation level. Although the spatial barriers would soon dissolve, absorbed back into the energy of heaven and earth, they only needed to last a few breaths. That brief delay could be enough to alter the course of a fight. Long Chun arrived at Tang Wan'er's side and saw that she was slightly pale. Forcibly summoning the Wind God's blessing had clearly taken a toll on her body, as she wasn't yet at the necessary realm to wield it. "Long Chun, let me handle him. I have the Wind God's blessing, and it directly counters his god energy," Tang Wan'er said softly, noticing the fury in his clenched jaw. As another user of god energy, Tang Wan'er had an advantage over this so-called fake god. After all, the Wind God's blessing was a true god energy, and it directly countered Yi Linfeng's energy. "Protect the others and leave this fellow to me." "Believe in me?" Long Chun replied, trying his best to keep his voice calm for Tang Wan'er. The overwhelming killing intent was affecting his control, and his entire body was shaking as he tried to restrain himself. He knew Tang Wan'er had a high chance of defeating Yi Linfeng, but it would come at a painful cost. The Wind God's blessing was a heavy burden for her body to bear, Seeing her willing to fight, Long Chun felt his heart ache for her. At the same time, his hatred for Yi Linfeng burned even hotter. He had already vowed that Yi Linfeng would not leave this battlefield alive. At that moment, Yi Linfeng's spatial barriers faded, and his wounds were fully recovered. Long Chun stepped forward, his killing intent rising to an unprecedented level. "Ha ha ha! Are you angry? Good. Now you won't run away," Yi Linfeng sneered. "I wanted to capture that girl to force you into a fight, but it seems I don't need to anymore." "Fine, since that's what you want." Long Chun spat. Boom! Long Chen's starry sea roared to life as his 8 stars blazed brilliantly. Flames ignited throughout his entire starry sea, and his aura erupted like a raging volcano. "Then let's fight to the death." With a roar that shook the heavens, Long Chun charged at Yi Linfeng, his endless killing intent pressing down on the world. The starry sea ignited as Long Chen's 8 stars blazed like miniature suns. Small dense stars were spinning around the 8 stars as if they were little galaxies surrounded by nebulas. Meanwhile, violet flames erupted from Long Chen's starry sea, intensifying with every moment. For the first time, Long Chen fully unleashed his astral energy. In his rage, he no longer cared about slowly activating them and pushed the 8-star battle armor to its limit. He didn't care if his body could endure it. After all, his rage had become a blazing inferno. If he didn't release it, he'd be consumed by it. As his starry sea burned, violet flames filled the world, shaking the land. A terrifying pressure radiated from Long Chun, causing the very fabric of space to twist and tear. The 10,000 Daos wailed in response, recoiling in fear. "Retreat!" Tang Wan'er cried out. Just as she led everyone back, the place they had stood on suddenly collapsed. Spatial runes circled the air, as if invisible beasts were devouring the very fabric of space. As the void beneath Yi Linfeng's feet shattered, he lunged toward Long Chun to seize the initiative. Boom! However, before he could reach Long Chun, a wave of surging chi blasted him back. What? Everyone was shocked by this, including Yi Linfeng. He had attacked to interrupt Long Chen's climbing aura, knowing if it continued rising, he would be in trouble. However, he couldn't even get close. Only then did he realize that he had done something extremely foolish. Around Long Chun, swirling nebulas orbited his blazing stars, and his aura continued to grow wildly. Space itself seemed unable to contain his power, tearing apart around him. Finally, the onlookers comprehended how terrifying Long Chun was. Back when he had called their previous fight a warm-up, it wasn't an exaggeration. In truth, it was barely more than him stretching his muscles. "Stop him! Don't let his aura keep rising!" shouted the Brahma Pill Valley elder in alarm. The wind domain battlefield was sealed off by a barrier, supposedly preventing any outside interference. Yet this elder had used a secret art to send his voice through. Gone was his previous calm indifference. His tone was now edged with panic and fear as he realized the full extent of Long Chen's power. Long Chen's aura continued climbing, sending the runes of the 10,000 Daos scattering away from him. It was a phenomenon they had never seen before. This was a clash of wills between Long Chun and the heavenly Daos. The latter was trying to suppress him because his power could threaten the stability of the world. God power. Violet lightning cloud piercing palm. Yi Linfeng roared, a hint of panic breaking through his voice. A lightning bolt rune appeared on his palm as his heavenly fate disc spun, unleashing its full might. Previously, his heavenly fate disc had only shown scattered lights and flashing runes. But now, for the first time, it spun at full power. The void exploded as Yi Linfeng's attack tore through the chi waves radiating from Long Chun. Yet as his palm pierced deeper, the crowd realized that Long Chen's chi waves were layered, continuously regenerating with dense waves of energy. Each layer Yi Linfeng broke through was instantly replaced by another, seemingly endless. Yi Linfeng's palm attack cut through these waves until he was almost at Long Chen's chest. Yet Long Chun didn't even flinch. Just as Yi Linfeng's hand was within 3 feet of Long Chun, the lightning bolt rune on his palm faded, its power exhausted. He still hadn't managed to touch Long Chun and was blasted back by the relentless chi waves. What? Everyone was shocked. Despite Yi Linfeng being in his full combat state, he still couldn't approach Long Chun. Just how powerful was Long Chun? Stop holding back. Ignite the martial god eyes, shouted the elder from the Brahma Pill Valley urgently. Hearing that, Yi Linfeng took a deep breath and slowly closed his eyes. When he reopened them, a golden ring glowed in his pupils, and twin golden pupils appeared within his heavenly fate disk. Boom! The 10,000 Daos were wailing because of Long Chen's power. However, when these pupils appeared, the wailing ceased. People found that the restraints of the laws of heaven and earth had vanished. It felt as though the heavens had surrendered, ceasing to clash with their powers. You are the first person in the same realm to force me to use the martial god eyes, said Yi Linfeng. He was an extremely proud person. For Long Chun to force him to use the martial god eyes was a humiliation to him. Yi Linfeng took a step forward, his lightning rune reappearing. This time he unleashed the same attack as before, but now it bore a supreme divine power. The chi waves around Long Chun parted instantly as Yi Linfeng closed the gap between them. This time, Long Chun moved, and his hand that was covered in stars slammed into Yi Linfeng's palm. When their palms met, space-time seemed to freeze, and all sound faded from the world. One was powered by God energy and the other by astral might. Two apocalyptic forces collided in a silent clash. Only the sound of hearts pounding could be heard. Although I haven't reached my peak state, it's more than enough against you, said Long Chun with icy killing intent. Big words. How about I go kill that woman right now? Responded Yi Linfeng just as coldly. Suddenly, black ripples appeared in Long Chen's eyes, and a chill ran down Yi Linfeng's spine. For a moment, he felt as though an ancient beast had awakened, its gaze fixed on him. Long Chun was still clashing with Yi Linfeng. Suddenly, he extended his thumb and pinky and grabbed Yi Linfeng's hand, like two iron pincers digging into it. Yi Linfeng felt a burst of pain and tried to pull his hand. The sound of bones breaking rang out, followed by Yi Linfeng's scream. His hand was forcibly ripped apart by Long Chun. What? Shouted the elder from the Brahma Pill Valley. Seeing Long Chun rip off Yi Linfeng's hand, the elder from the Brahma Pill Valley was completely shocked. Of everyone present, only he understood the full extent of Yi Linfeng's strength. But even at this level, Yi Linfeng couldn't match Long Chun in raw power and was instantly injured. Astral energy penetrated Yi Linfeng's body. Because his god energy couldn't stop this invasion, he became paralyzed. Still can't see the difference between us? Maybe you need a refund on those eyes, mocked Long Chun. Long Chen's left hand struck like lightning, and two fingers jabbed into Yi Linfeng's eye sockets. With his right hand shattered and his body overwhelmed by astral energy, Yi Linfeng was defenseless. In one swift move, Long Chun dug out his eyes, drawing a blood-curdling scream from him that echoed across the battlefield. Countless experts watching were horrified by Long Chen's ruthlessness. Even the hidden dragon warriors, who'd become accustomed to life-and-death battles, couldn't help but shiver. Boom! Yi Linfeng's manifestation shuddered, and the eyes within it instantly expelled the astral energy invading his body. Roaring, he swung his arm and blew off his wrist to escape Long Chen's grip, choosing to sacrifice it rather than remain trapped. Yi Linfeng was also a vicious character. Despite the pain, he instantly made the right choice, rapidly retreating and forming hand seals with his remaining hand as he regrew his wrist. Although his hand regrew quickly, his eyes did not. Now, Yi Linfeng was forced to rely on his divine sense and his manifestation to replace his vision. As he tried to refocus, he was met with gasps of shock from onlookers and the furious roar of the elder. A sense of dread washed over him. He had completely lost his peripheral awareness. Panic-stricken, Yi Linfeng struck out blindly while retreating, unaware that Long Chun had already closed the distance between them. When Long Chun blinded Yi Linfeng's eyes, he knew that Yi Linfeng would use his other senses and manifestation's eyes instead. Hence, He threw out an astral wall to block Yi Linfeng's manifestation. Disoriented and desperate after losing his vision, Yi Linfeng flailed in chaos. Just as expected, Yi Linfeng staggered and swung wildly, like a headless fly. Long Chun easily closed in, infusing his arm with astral energy as he delivered a powerful blow. Pow! Yi Linfeng's face cracked, his bones and skin shattering under the impact, and he was sent tumbling back. Why must you provoke me? Pow! Why must you provoke me? Pow! Long Chun struck Yi Linfeng freely, each slap landing squarely on his face no matter how he dodged or flailed. Long Chun moved like a shooting star, each slap exploding through the void. The force behind them was unimaginable. Seeing that Yi Linfeng could not even retaliate, people were completely stunned. This was Yi Linfeng. If anyone else had been on the receiving end of these blows, they'd have been reduced to dust. Not even their bones would have left. While Yi Linfeng was still alive, his face was incredibly swollen. His mouth had been obliterated, and his teeth scattered to who knows where. The relentless slaps left Yi Linfeng dumbfounded. He flailed and struck out randomly, but nothing he did could hinder Long Chen's barrage. Despite his immense combat experience and power, he couldn't do anything against these face slaps. At this moment, Yi Linfeng seemed inferior even to an ordinary expert. The latter would think about how to escape once they were caught, while this idiot only tried to dodge and defend. Use the Phoenix Blood Emperor diagram, the elder from Pill Valley roared. Hearing this, Yi Linfeng finally reacted, and his heavenly fate disc quivered, revealing an enormous divine diagram. A formidable emperor's pressure radiated from the divine diagram as it appeared. It was a weapon crafted from the hide of an ancient divine beast, etched with intricate runes. The instant it materialized, it dispelled the astral energy Long Chun was using to block the heavenly fate disc. Yi Linfeng's vision returned in a flash, as if he had emerged from total darkness into blinding light. Boom! The divine diagram surged toward Long Chun, its twisting runes creating a powerful suction force that pulled him off balance, momentarily interrupting his attack. With that, Yi Linfeng seized his chance and broke free. Only once Yi Linfeng escaped did the crowd see his face clearly, and gasps echoed through the air. His face was nearly unrecognizable. Most of his skin was shredded, and little flesh or blood remained on the exposed bones. Moreover, his toothless mouth was a bloody hole. Without the heavenly fate disc, no one would have even recognized him. Yi Linfeng had long since lost any sensation from his face. But seeing everyone's reaction, he knew he looked uglier than a ghost now. Furious, he roared in rage. But as he did, a sinister black saber appeared in Long Chen's hand, exuding a chilling aura. Your mouth is too annoying. I will shut it, Long Chun declared, summoning Dragonbone Evil Moon in his waning moon heaven shaking slash. Evil Moon whistled down, its edge like the death god's sickle. The strike was purely powered by Evil Moon's power, not by astral energy or bloodline power. During this period, Evil Moon had grown even stronger. Evil Moon hacked directly at the divine diagram hovering above Yi Linfeng's head. A tearing sound echoed as the terrifying divine diagram split like fragile paper, its runes dimming instantly. This ancient weapon, bearing a revered inheritance, was destroyed in a single stroke before it could unleash its full might. How could this happen? Yi Linfeng stammered, dumbfounded. The divine diagram might only be a human emperor divine weapon, but the divine diagram's layered abilities made it comparable to a divine emperor artifact. Yet Long Chen's single strike had obliterated it. As Long Chun advanced, holding Evil Moon with an icy gaze, his killing intent was boundless. He moved toward Yi Linfeng like a death god ready to claim another soul, and the very air trembled at his presence. Evil Moon rested heavily on Long Chen's shoulder, its dark presence tainting the air with a sinister killing intent that seemed to warp the very laws of nature. During their time together, Evil Moon had grown even stronger, and its murderous aura was also more oppressive, like a weapon forged in the depths of hell itself. Its very name was synonymous with death and devastation. Together, Long Chun and Evil Moon unleashed an overwhelming killing intent. So intense that even the strongest experts around felt a primal fear when looking at them. Their souls quivered, and they could not help but tremble. Even Yi Lingkong and the others outside of the barrier felt it. This kind of killing intent infected the soul and drew out the most primal fear in a person's heart. Despite their high cultivation, even half-step divine emperors felt fear gnawing at their hearts. In front of death, all people were equal. Perhaps death was truly the fairest thing in this world. Long Chun walked toward Yi Linfeng, his eyes icy and unforgiving, like a death god from hell. The space behind him was constantly twisting and collapsing. The human race is so foolish because they lack reverence and gratitude. Long Chen's voice was as icy as it was cutting. The weak should revere the strong because the strong can take everything they have at any moment. However, the strong also need to respect the weak. Otherwise, the tables will turn when the weak grow stronger. You don't understand this, do you? You think your little power and your connections make you a god, and you are entitled to kill others at will? Let alone you, even Lord Brahma almost had his Yuan spirit destroyed and his Tao vanish. And you, a mere quasi-god, what gives you the right to be so arrogant? Long Chen's voice struck like thunder, reverberating through everyone present. Yi Linfeng was a generation's genius, someone with his own god inheritance and the support of countless years of accumulated faith energy. But now he seemed like a frightened rabbit cornered by a tiger. The two of them were incomparable. At this moment, Long Chen's words were like a heavenly sovereign's murmur, yet also like a devil god's hiss. It shook people's souls, including Yi Linfeng's. Regrettably, with his eyes gone and his face disfigured, people couldn't see what kind of expression he had. He trembled, whether with anger or fear, no one could say. A little ant like you, what gives you the right to judge a god? You think this is all I'm capable of? You're wrong, roared Yi Linfeng, his voice distorted and slurred without a proper set of mouth and teeth. The spectators were barely able to understand what he was saying, but the confidence in his voice was unmistakable. Faith energy ignition. With a furious shout, Yi Linfeng was engulfed in milky white flames as his faith energy ignited, unleashing a sacred and blinding aura. Heavens, he still had a trump card, exclaimed someone. Just as people thought it was over, Yi Linfeng's aura soared once again. Igniting faith energy? A demon expert observing from the sidelines muttered. That's a steep price to pay. Faith energy is difficult to accumulate. By igniting it, he will gain temporary power, but the lost faith energy might take thousands or tens of thousands of years to replenish. In that case, he won't make it for this reopening of the 9 heavens, and he'll miss his chance to condense heaven vein dragon chi. Even if he does kill Long Chun now, it won't be worth it. He'll never be able to catch up to us. The demon expert had a decent relationship with Yi Linfeng, though it was more like a business relationship. After all, the faction behind him wanted to use his relationship with Yi Linfeng to uplift themselves. Now that Yi Linfeng had ignited his faith energy, his cultivation base would stall for a while, causing him to fall from the peak. As the martial god hall had countless experts, his position would quickly be taken by someone else. Since that was the case, the demon expert's efforts to form a relationship with Yi Linfeng would be in vain. As Yi Linfeng's faith energy blazed, his wild pressure shook heaven and earth. Yet, Long Chen's pace was unbroken as he walked toward him, one step at a time. Even if we're all ants, who dares to say an ant can't climb to the top of the world? Long Chen declared coldly. These words struck the hidden dragon warriors deeply. After all, they had once been top heavenly geniuses in their sections. However, after arriving at the Wind God Sea Pavilion, they were drowned out by the countless heavenly geniuses. At that moment, they realized just how ordinary and weak they were, feeling as insignificant as ants. In the Wind God Sea Pavilion, the native disciples called them ants and insects to describe their weakness and inferiority. While they wanted to counterattack and prove themselves, reality was cruel. Every time they tried, they were beaten and were only mocked more. It was a dark period of their lives. They had thought they would only be ant-like existences in the Wind God's Sea Pavilion until their longevity ran out. However, Long Chun triggered the grand ambitions buried deep within their hearts. Since Long Chun and Tang Waner had crawled up from the bottom of the mortal world, who could say for sure that an ant could not walk to the peak of the world? "You filthy bug! Shut your mouth! I'll kill you, and then these women!" Yi Linfeng snarled. In an instant, starlight burst beneath Long Chen's feet. He surged forward, swinging Evil Moon at Yi Linfeng. Yi Linfeng bit back his curse, hastily raising an ancient bronze bell that was covered in glowing white runes to intercept the strike. Evil Moon struck the bell with a force that sent a shockwave rippling through the battlefield. A sound like tearing metal echoed, and many onlookers coughed blood, disoriented and reeling from the impact. Tang Waner and the others were no exception. They felt a painful ringing in their ears, a jarring force that seemed to shake them from the inside out. Long Chun staggered back a few steps, but Yi Linfeng fared worse. Blood dribbled from his lips as the flames around him dimmed slightly. From this one clash, Long Chen knew that this bronze bell was no ordinary object. It radiated immense faith energy, which marked it as a true faith divine weapon. After that, Long Chun snorted and poured astral energy into Evil Moon without reservation. With this infusion, Evil Moon's sinister aura soared to a new level, and it slashed at Yi Linfeng again. The previous attack had been entirely Evil Moon's power, but now the two joined forces and launched an apocalyptic attack. "Know your place, you ant!" shouted Yi Linfeng. Knowing that anything less than his full power would spell his end, Yi Linfeng gathered every bit of his ignited faith energy, pouring it into the bronze bell. Boom! The ground shook as these two divine weapons collided again, releasing a blast so intense that everyone nearby instinctively covered their ears and erected layer upon layer of protective barriers. They could only watch as these two peerless divine weapons smashed into each other. Dragonbone Evil Moon smashed into the bronze bell with the full force of Long Chen's starry sea. This much power was something only Evil Moon could contain. The collision was cataclysmic, as if the world itself were fracturing. Cracks spread through the sky, filling it with a foreboding sense of destruction. Within this appalling scene, the bronze bell shattered into tiny bits, and Yi Linfeng hacked up blood, his flesh rupturing. He was almost blown apart by the impact. After all, this devastating strike carried not only Long Chen's astral energy, but also the combined killing intent of both him and Evil Moon, a resonance of their wills. The two of them had reached a new level of synergy between them. This was one blow to decide victory or defeat. People stared up at the cracks in the sky. Though slowly fading, the shock they caused would be etched into memory for a lifetime. Evil Moon returned to rest on Long Chen's shoulder. Although visibly pale and breathless, Long Chen exuded an undaunted resolve. The power of this attack was amazing, but the cost was equally great. As spatial fragments swirled in the air, Long Chen strode toward Yi Linfeng. He moved with the aura of an undefeatable war god, a figure who would cut down devils and immortals alike if they dared stand in his way. Yi Linfeng lay helpless, reduced to a barely breathing mass of flesh. With every shuddering breath, blood gushed out of his mouth. In the distance, all the experts who had come with Yi Linfeng were stunned. Yi Linfeng was unimaginably powerful but had still lost. Furthermore, his defeat was clear-cut. There was no room to argue. Despite his god power, Yi Linfeng was left as little more than a corpse with a few labored breaths. His fingers twitched as if struggling to form a hand seal, his lips moving as though trying to speak, but he couldn't muster the strength. Long Chen slowly walked toward Yi Linfeng, his eyes as icy as ever. Even now, his killing intent had not lessened. When he reached Yi Linfeng, Evil Moon hacked down on him like a bolt of lightning. Buzz. However, just as Long Chen was about to end him, the fragments of the bronze bell gathered once more, blocking him. Boom! The impact of Evil Moon on the bell forced Long Chen backward, nearly making him cough up blood. Stars spun in his vision, and his hand bled from the recoil. What? Tang Wan'er and the others gasped. Could Yi Linfeng still be resisting, even in this state? Long Chun glared at the bronze bell as it floated in midair, drawing upon an endless stream of faith energy to rapidly repair itself. Long Chun then followed the source of the faith energy, and his pupils contracted. Yi Linfeng was already down, but his heavenly fate disk was still hovering in the air, pulsing with even more power than before. Smaller disks had appeared within it, and there was a person sitting inside every disk. In an instant, Long Chun understood. Faith energy surged, mending the bell and restoring Yi Linfeng's body with shocking speed. In just a few breaths, he looked healed. Upon seeing this, both friend and foe were stunned. Just as they thought that Yi Linfeng was definitely dead, the tables turned. "Does he really have an undying body?" exclaimed someone, seeing his wounds vanish in moments. This ability was heaven-defying. Though outwardly healed, Yi Linfeng was in a weak state and couldn't even attack. However, he commanded his heavenly fate disk. "Kill him!" Only then did the onlookers realize the figures within the disk were alive, each performing hand seals. They could see through the heavenly fate disk as if looking into another world. "So, this was your final trump card?" Long Chun sneered, glancing contemptuously at the disk. "Your so-called undefeated record depends on this? How laughable! How pitiful!" This was Yi Linfeng's ultimate trump card, the hundreds of figures supporting him. Their combined faith energy coursed through his heavenly fate disk to heal his wounds and repair his divine weapon. Although Long Chun couldn't identify them, he knew they weren't ordinary. The power of the bronze bell actually increased thanks to their support. In the end, no matter how strong of an opponent Yi Linfeng ran into, he wouldn't die. At a critical juncture, these people would help him. This was the source of his undying body. To be able to fight with Feng to this extent, you aren't an ordinary person. "What is your name?" shouted an elder within the heavenly fate disk. When this elder spoke, Emperor Might raged, and Long Chun could sense his cultivation base. A half-step divine emperor. Long Chun didn't reply. Upon looking closer at the figures in the heavenly fate disk, he sneered, "What extravagance! There are actually 7 half-step divine emperors protecting this idiot. But if I, Long Chun, want to kill someone, not even a heavenly sovereign would be able to stop me." Long Chun walked right back at Yi Linfeng, ignoring those powerful figures in his heavenly fate disk. Even after fighting an immense battle and his aura starting to drop, Long Chun did not back down. This kind of confidence could make even heaven and earth submit. "Fine, then you can just die," the elder roared, forming a series of hand seals along with everyone else in the heavenly fate disk. The next moment, the bronze bell blazed like the sun, and an immense pressure crashed down. As a result, the barrier of the wind domain battlefield started to swell and deform. "Die!" the elder roared, sending the bronze bell smashing at Long Chun. Buzz. To everyone's surprise, when the bronze bell arrived in front of Long Chun, it suddenly exploded. Everyone inside the heavenly fate disk spat out blood. "What?" they all shouted in shock and fear. The once mighty bell had disintegrated into dust this time, not fragments. Amidst the fading dust, some caught a glimpse of a bronze cauldron, though it vanished before anyone could see clearly. They then saw Long Chen's figure walk out of the dust, with Evil Moon still on his shoulder. "As I said, if I, Long Chun, intend to kill someone, no one can prevent it. So, whatever tricks you still have, use them now," Long Chun exclaimed. Those elders had poured in their power through the heavenly fate disk to repair the bronze bell, but it was directly shattered by the earth cauldron. In front of the earth cauldron, other divine weapons were nothing more than toys. The earth cauldron was only afraid of being infected by blood soul chi, so it easily smashed through the energy coming from another space, reducing the bronze bell to irreparable fragments. Inside the heavenly fate disk, the figures supporting Yi Linfeng coughed up blood, staining the disk red. Long Chun sneered, "So you turned a heavenly fate disk into a faith disk, hoping that an endless supply of faith energy would make you invincible?" He had seen through the secrets of Yi Linfeng's heavenly fate disk, and they were nothing special. "Little fellow, stop right now. Do you know who Yi Linfeng is?" roared the elder in the heavenly fate disk. In response, Long Chun swung his saber at Yi Linfeng. Seeing this, the figures inside the heavenly fate disk quickly formed hand seals. They pulled on Yi Linfeng's blood chi to create a protective shield. Seeing the shield's runes, Long Chen's pupils contracted. "Jilly runes. So he's—" Boom! Evil Moon struck the shield, shattering it. Yi Linfeng staggered, blood dripping from his mouth. "Stop! Yi Linfeng is a descendant of the two divine clans, the Yi clan and the Lin clan. If you kill him, you will provoke the entire Jilly divine race," the elder roared, attempting to intimidate Long Chun while his group activated a spatial whirlpool to whisk Yi Linfeng away. By throwing out the name of the Yi and Lin clans, they thought Long Chun would at least be somewhat worried. While he hesitated, they could bring Yi Linfeng away with a spatial transportation. However, Evil Moon slashed down without hesitation, blowing the spatial whirlpool apart. "You!" With another fierce slash, Yi Linfeng's body and soul disintegrated, leaving no trace. His protectors within the heavenly fate disk could only watch in horror and fury. "The divine Yi clan?" Long Chin sneered. "The Long, Jiang, Yi, and Zhao clans, descendants of the Jilly race?" It seemed that the mysterious veil of the divine clans came off on its own. Memories of Long Tianrui's journey into the endless desolation to uncover the divine clan's legacy flashed through Long Chen's mind. Now, it seemed he had stumbled upon the Yi clan himself. "You ingrate, don't even think about living after killing someone from my Yi clan. Your sect and family will be exterminated, and I will torture you until you beg for death," the elder hissed through gritted teeth. "You say too many meaningless words. The Jilly race's descendants. Are you all nothing but lapdogs of Brahma now? Do you think a dog with a powerful owner can randomly bark and snarl at others?" With a final, disdainful swing of Evil Moon, Long Chun struck the heavenly fate disk, shattering it into pieces and silencing the furious voices within. After that, Long Chun suddenly swayed, feeling the world spinning around him. "Long Chun, are you all right?" Tang Wanner rushed forward to support him. "I'm fine. Now's the time for the Hidden Dragon Legion to move in. Kill every last one of them," Long Chun replied, his voice steady despite the pain coursing through his meridians. "They had their chance. Since they chose to keep chasing us, we'll wipe them out to the last. Show no mercy." Tang Wanner immediately took the lead, drawing her sword and shooting off toward the distance experts like a bolt of lightning. "Kill!" Having personally witnessed Long Chen's peerless power, the Hidden Dragon warriors felt their own blood boiling with excitement. Now that it was their turn, their fighting spirits were at full power. They had the urge to charge into the horde of enemies. The surge of power they'd felt during their recent transformation now made sense. They'd been trained and led by an unmatched master. Considering just how amazing this opportunity was, they had to work as if their lives depended on it, or they would be letting down all of Long Chen's efforts. How could an expert that looked down on all the 9 heavens spend that much effort just to raise a group of trash? That was unacceptable. Thinking of that, the Hidden Dragon warriors charged, their spirits ablaze, causing their collective power to reach an unprecedented level. At that moment, they knew only one mission: to live up to Long Chen's expectations, no matter the cost. Failure was not an option. Meanwhile, Tang Wanner had fully unleashed her strength, her heavenly fate disk shining at its peak. She cut down her opponents in a ruthless frenzy. Even the strongest enemies could barely last 3 moves against her. At first, Xiao Yu and the others had aimed to surround the enemy, but with such a vast number disparity, forming a true encirclement was impossible. Any gaps would only give their foes an easy escape. Realizing this, they quickly shifted tactics. Instead of stretching themselves thin trying to contain everyone, they focused on taking down the strongest experts first. For the weaker enemies, spiritual marks were placed on them, ensuring they could be tracked down and hunted later. The Hidden Dragon warriors moved like a pack of wolves, cutting through their opponents without mercy, each strike swift and decisive. The enemy had never encountered such a relentless assault before. When they saw the hidden dragon warriors coming at them like madwomen, their guts were broken. Bodies fell here and there, and any semblance of a battle formation vanished. At the heart of the battle, Tang Wanner's blade danced through the air, and she pushed her wind energy to its peak. Alone, she held back 3 top-tier experts, existences who once called Yi Linfeng brother. Although their power might not be as terrifying as Yi Linfeng's, they were still peak experts. Even with their combined strength, they struggled under her onslaught, unable to mount any real counterattack. They gritted their teeth as they tried to hold on. Long Chun is on his last legs. Kill him, shouted someone. The battlefield stilled as several warriors looked over, spotting Long Chun seated in the air with his eyes closed. Seizing what they thought was an opening, they rushed toward him. Keep going. I'll protect Big Brother Long Chun, Xiao Yu shouted, pulling back to guard him. But before those attackers could get close, they were obliterated by a bolt of lightning. Emerging from the aftermath was a young woman cloaked in lightning, her entire figure radiating an awe-inspiring power. It was Lei Linger, her eyes ablaze with countless swirling lightning runes, her presence like that of a true lightning goddess. All those who approach my big brother will die, Lei Linger declared, her voice booming like thunder. It was filled with the destructive will of the heavenly Daos, sending a wave of fear through her enemies. Lei Linger stood like a goddess of lightning, guarding Long Chun with an overwhelming thunder force. She didn't even need to do anything herself. Just a trace of her Thunder Force domain's power was enough to wipe out these blind experts. Now, Lei Linger possessed the power to fight on her own. She had grown quickly by absorbing the heavenly tribulation energy released by the primal chaos space. After all, some of the devil creatures they defeated had carried Emperor-level lightning in their bodies, and through absorbing it, Lei Linger had reached new heights. Let alone a single Yi Linfeng. Even if Long Chun had faced 2, he wouldn't have been concerned. Long Chun hadn't used Lei Linger or Hua Linger's power, although the 2 of them were his strongest helpers. Even the Silver Hair Void Crusher had suffered in their hands, so either one of them could have easily matched Yi Linfeng in battle. Even while the other side was cheating, Long Chun didn't use their power. The reason for that was to test his own power after it was transformed by the Radiant World Star Crystal. To his surprise, even after such a long period of adjustment, his meridians were still injured when he exerted more energy, causing them to tear. To use the Earth Cauldron's words, he was too impetuous and rash. The Cauldron argued that Yi Linfeng was already weaker than him, and it made no sense for him to risk himself in a prolonged fight rather than using Lei Linger or Hua Linger to end it swiftly. However, Long Chun had his own reasons for personally killing Yi Linfeng. The first reason was simply because that fellow's mouth was too hateful. If Long Chun hadn't personally killed him, he wouldn't have been able to resolve the hatred in his heart. Another reason was that he had to get used to the Radiant World Star Crystal's power sooner or later. So why not do it earlier? Even if he was injured as a result, it wasn't something bad. After being modified by the Radiant World Star Crystal, his astral energy became even stronger. But using it put immense pressure on his meridians. To wield it effectively, he saw 2 options. Either somehow communicate with the crystal to soften its energy, which seemed impossible, or fortify his meridians through repeated strain and healing. With every repair, they would become tougher. During this process, he had to slowly figure out how to control it so that his wild astral energy became gentle. That would be the only way to unleash his full power without injuring himself. However, all things needed to be done one step at a time. While Long Chun had been a bit rash, with this one step done, the future path would be easier to walk. Could be said that he had profited from this battle. Although the Earth Cauldron grumbled at him, Long Chun simply smiled and waved it off. After all, the Earth Cauldron was an item spirit, so its way of thinking was rigid. On the other hand, its master had never walked the conventional path. There was no way to have their lines of thought match perfectly. While the Earth Cauldron grumbled, Evil Moon sharply defended Long Chen's actions, calling them the actions of a true man. After all, if a man could still remain rational when their woman was repeatedly threatened, he wouldn't even be human. According to Evil Moon, a man should act this way, going all out against someone when they crossed his bottom line. Thinking could be done afterward. Evil Moon also said, so what if it's brash? Being brash takes courage. It's the weak who don't even dare to be brash. Being brash isn't a flaw. The real flaw is lacking the courage to be brash. Without that courage, how would you ever have the strength to face Lord Brahma? Or to challenge the entire world? Long Chun was a bit surprised. Who would have thought that Evil Moon could say something so thought-provoking? It was actually very reasonable and profound. For the first time, the Earth Cauldron had no comeback and fell silent. Seeing this, Long Chun couldn't help but find it funny. He also felt a surprising new level of understanding with Evil Moon since its transformation. Did this have something to do with the last battle? Long Chun thought. Long Chun recalled the peculiar sensation he'd had with Evil Moon during the fight. A deeper connection, almost beyond words. With Lei Linger protecting him, Long Chun peacefully healed and examined the transformations in his body. But in the outside world, rivers of blood had formed as a full slaughter was in motion. Lei Linger wasn't merely defending Long Chun from attackers. She had summoned a lightning barrier around the entire battlefield, enclosing an immense area. Although her power was dispersed over such a large space, even this weaker barrier was impenetrable for the average expert. Only the peak experts could break through it, but they were already locked in combat against Tang Wan'er and the 8 divine retainers. They were bitterly holding on and didn't even have a chance to run. If they tried to, they would be turning their backs to their enemies and die in an instant. At this point, they were caught in a dilemma. They couldn't beat their enemies in combat, but they also couldn't flee. Their cries and pleas for mercy filled the air. However, the hidden dragon warriors had long since steeled their hearts. They felt no mercy and showed none. Their swords moved with cold precision, extinguishing lives one after another. Countless enemies tried to take advantage of the chaos to flee, but the lightning barrier blocked them. Even when they attacked it with all their might, they couldn't do shit. Some of them were directly killed by the barrier's thunder force. They were like birds trapped in a cage. All that awaited them was death. As they cried and pleaded for mercy, they even begged for help from the outside world. However, the experts outside of the wind domain battlefield's barrier could only roar, unable to do anything else. Yi Lingkong, is your wind god sea pavilion really prepared to fight all of us to the death? You'd go this far? Threatened one old elder. Yi Lingkong simply stood there, his arms crossing in front of his chest as he chewed on a stalk of grass lazily. It was as if what was happening in the barrier had nothing to do with him. Yi Lingkong didn't even look at this roaring elder. He slowly raised his hand and took the stalk of grass from his mouth, walking away. What does that mean? Roared the elder. Yi Lingkong paused, glancing back with a faint smile. While I was drinking with Long Chun, he told me something I rather like. I think I'll pass it on to you. If you've got anything else up your sleeve, use it. Yi Lingkong's eyes gleamed. If not, then just die. Yi Lingkong. Do those words represent the stance of the wind god sea pavilion? Are you declaring war on Brahma Pill Valley? Demanded the elder from the Brahma Pill Valley. Today he was truly dumbfounded. First, the sheer power Long Chun displayed when he killed Yi Linfeng had left him shaken. But then, the overwhelming combat strength of the Hidden Dragon Legion had shocked him even more. It was completely different from the information he had on them. And now, even Yi Lingkong responded with open hostility, an outcome far beyond the elder's expectations. What was this long-declined wind god sea pavilion trying to achieve? Were they trying to rise once more? If you want to see it as a declaration of war, then go right ahead. Yi Lingkong replied lazily, dismissing the elder's threat with a shrug. The higher-ups will handle it anyway, so why should I give a damn? Patriarch, save me! Shouted someone. Within the barrier, countless disciples screamed and begged to be saved. However, the elders could only watch as they fell to the Hidden Dragon Legion's sharp swords. Wind God Sea Pavilion will remember this. Sooner or later, everyone will join forces to wipe you out. One elder roared. These grand threats had no impact and solved nothing. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, one of the 8 peak experts finally slipped and fell to Tang Wan'er's sword. In an instant, the fragile balance of the battlefield was broken, which resulted in the death of the remaining peak experts. While they were the strongest heavenly geniuses of the various factions, today, their lives were as worthless as blades of grass. In less than the time it took for an incense stick to burn, all the peak experts were dead. Blood soaked the ground, and corpses lay strewn about. It was a chilling sight. Other than Tang Wan'er, everyone else from the Hidden Dragon Legion was covered in blood, some their own, but most from their enemies. However, they didn't mind at all. Now they wore their bloodstains as badges of honor, a symbol of victor. It was a result of them challenging their fates. In this brutal battle, not a single member of the Hidden Dragon Legion had perished, though many were injured. Some of them even had several alarming holes in their bodies. However, these female warriors seemed completely unaffected, not even rushing to heal the injuries. The pain reminded them just how close they had come to death, and it steeled their resolve to grow stronger. They would not just survive. They would seize control of their destinies. They were rapidly transforming. From maidens almost untouched by blood, they had become true warriors who had slaughtered millions of experts without wavering. Together, they stood in a victorious line, gazing coldly at the experts outside the barrier. The Hidden Dragon Legion hadn't just slain these experts' disciples. They now stood atop their bodies, looking down upon the elders who could only watch in helpless fury. Just you wait. You'll pay with your lives for this massacre. I won't stop at killing you. I'll hunt down everyone close to you. You murderers, you'll all die miserable deaths. The elders were about to explode from rage, so they furiously cursed from the other side of the barrier, using all kinds of ugly words without caring about their status. Facing their twisted expressions and curses, the Hidden Dragon warriors didn't even feel angry. Instead, they felt gratified. The strong didn't need to waste time cursing their foes. For these elders to stoop to such words was proof that they were utterly powerless to change the outcome. Seeing these mighty half-step divine emperors spraying saliva like shrews shouting in the streets, the Hidden Dragon warriors looked at each other and felt a sense of pride. They didn't know who had started it, but they suddenly burst into laughter. The sound of their laughter only fueled the elders' fury, pushing their rage to new heights. One of the elders was so enraged that he spat blood and fainted, unable to control himself. Seeing this, the Hidden Dragon warriors became excited, and some of them even started to dance and make faces at the elders just to taunt them. It would be even sweeter if a few more of them collapsed from anger. However, just as the situation reached its peak, the barrier around the wind domain battlefield started to heal. After the destruction caused by Long Chun and Yi Linfeng's battle, the damaged barrier slowly closed, cutting off the two sides' view of one another. It was fortunate for the elders. If the mockery had continued, they might have literally been driven to death by their own fury. Gather all our experts. We'll stand guard here. The Wind God Sea Pavilion won't just sit still and watch, but I refuse to believe they'll dare to fight our combined forces. We'll kill all their disciples in front of them. We'll make them taste the same pain, shouted the elder from the Brahma Pill Valley. I'll signal my resonant dragon race immediately, another elder added. We'll move out in full force. If the Wind God Sea Pavilion dares to protect their disciples, it'll be a fight to the death. If all the major factions bring their full power, we'll crush them, a third elder growled. We'll wipe the Wind God Sea Pavilion off the map. If they resist, it'll be the end of them. Hopefully they'll fight back. That way we can just destroy them once and for all. The Wind Domain battlefield will be ours. With their disciples slain, the elders immediately sent word back to their sects and races. Their hatred for the Wind God Sea Pavilion had reached an unforgivable level. However, what the elders seemed to have forgotten was the history between the Wind God Sea Pavilion and the other factions. In past openings of the Wind Domain battlefield, the disciples of the Wind God Sea Pavilion had always been treated as prey, hunted down without mercy. How many of those disciples had fallen by their hands? Outside the barrier, the leaders of the major factions were already formulating plans to destroy the Wind God Sea Pavilion. Inside, however, Long Chun and the Hidden Dragon warriors were focused on recovery. This battle had been a resounding victory for them, overwhelming in its scope. It had to be noted that their opponents had not been the greenhouse flowers of the Wind God Sea Pavilion. No, these were vicious and relentless fighters who had fought tooth and nail in a desperate counterattack before finally falling. Because of them, many Hidden Dragon warriors had been gravely injured, some just a hair's breadth from death. This battle starkly highlighted the difference between theory and reality. While the Seven Treasure Space offered an environment remarkably close to the real world, its simulations lacked the unpredictable elements of actual combat. The figures within it had so few tactics and never evolved. Hence, once the Hidden Dragon warriors had grasped their opponent's techniques, the threat lessened dramatically. By now, the Seven Treasure Space was no longer that useful for them. This had been their first true bloody battle, the first step in their transformation into true experts. Despite the wounds and scars, every moment had been worth it. 3 days later, they were fully recovered and in high spirits. It was time to move out. Through the battle, the Hidden Dragon warriors' morale soared. They were fearless. Even knowing the Wind Domain battlefield was fraught with dangers, they entered brimming with confidence. Before they ventured in, Yi Lingkong had explained the Wind Domain battlefield's layout. It was divided into 3 sections: the outer area, the inner area, and the core area. The outer area had been thoroughly swept many times and was unlikely to hold valuable items anymore. The inner region contained curse energy, and only those of the Wind God line could resist it without a problem. Outsiders would need to continuously circulate their energy to shield themselves from its effects. Within the inner area, walking devil corpses roamed, making it hard for outsiders to move through this region. Because of this, although the Wind Domain battlefield had opened countless times, and people had searched through it over and over again, some treasures were always overlooked, offering lucky explorers the chance to find them. Certain spots within this region had such intense curse energy that even peak experts struggled to approach them. Staying too long in those areas would leave their bodies and souls cursed. Yet, this curse energy had a negligible effect on the Wind God Sea Pavilion's disciples, making the Wind Domain battlefield truly a land of treasures for them. This attracted the envy of other factions, who then ambushed Wind God Sea Pavilion's disciples in the outer and inner regions. Of course, some were even more sinister. They waited until the disciples had gathered treasures, then struck to kill and rob them. Now, the Wind Domain battlefield had become the treasure land of the Hidden Dragon warriors. With Long Chen's presence, they had no need to fear sneak attacks from outsiders. He organized them into smaller squads to widen the search area, allowing them to cover more ground. As they traveled, Long Chun noticed a distinct shift in the air after 3 days of flying. He could feel the potent curse energy enveloping them, which meant that they had reached the inner area. Although Long Chun knew only a single curse art, he was keenly attuned to the aura of curses. He sensed a powerful, lingering spiritual curse here, one formed through a life sacrifice. The user had bound the devil creatures in an eternal prison so they could no longer harm others. Long Chun, should we stay together or split up? Asked Tang Waner. Though Tang Waner preferred to stay with Long Chun, she knew splitting up would increase their chances of finding treasures, and she didn't want to hold him back. Long Chun said, "We should split up. Take care of yourself and look after your sisters." While Long Chun also wanted to stay with Tang Waner, he knew the treasures here were most likely left for disciples of the Wind God line. As a divine daughter, Tang Waner's odds of finding them were excellent. If he stayed with her, his bad luck might impact her chances. In any case, given her strength, nothing in the inner area should pose a real threat to her, even an awakened heaven devil. Tang Waner nodded. After telling Long Chun to be careful, she set off in different directions, but both were heading toward the depths of the Wind Domain battlefield. As Long Chun entered this curse-laden area, he couldn't help but feel shaken. He could feel the longing and resentment beneath the murderous will of the curse energy. Clearly, Feng Wuji, the caster of this curse art, had deep attachments. However, he had sacrificed himself to keep the heaven devils in an eternal slumber. Sensing the emotions within this curse energy, Long Chun wondered. If he ever found himself in a similar position, could he make such a sacrifice to drag down his enemies? Could he leave behind his hot-blooded brothers, his companions, his loved ones? I really hate war. Long Chun sighed. War was cruel, like a monster destroying all kinds of beauty and ripping away what mattered most to people. Yet, there were always those who thrived on it, pursuing war for personal gain. They took what they wanted without thinking about the pain they brought to others. In their eyes, perhaps war was simply business. If I want to end this war and rid the world of those who fuel it, I have to become stronger, Long Chun thought, his resolve growing. Long Chun took a deep breath, feeling a deep melancholy. This battlefield stirred memories of the familiar faces he had encountered along his cultivation path. In his mind, those familiar faces smiled, yet every thought of them felt like a knife to his heart. Lu Feng the old man, Chu Jianying, Ling Yunzi, Hu Feng, all the brothers who had fought to the death by his side. If not for war, they would still be alive, living happily and enjoying the beauty of this world. But the world held no room for ifs. There was only endless cruelty. To stop war, Long Chun needed a power that could instill fear across the land, enough to make those who sought to profit from war tremble at the thought of starting one. He needed to grow stronger, so strong that his enemies would quiver merely at the mention of his name. Power was the foundation for resolving problems. When this world no longer cared about reason, then brute force was the way to go. Suddenly, the space before Long Chun started to quiver as intense waves of curse energy radiated in the air, bringing him to a halt. The curse energy here was especially potent, and although Long Chun wasn't a disciple of the Wind God Sea Pavilion, nor had he practiced its divine arts, he was unaffected by the curse energy thanks to a jade tablet Feng Xinyue had given him. It enabled him to move as freely as the pavilion's disciples. In truth, both Feng Xinyue and Yi Lingkong had assumed Long Chun would use this tablet to his advantage on the battlefield, especially by fighting enemies within the inner region, where he would gain a significant edge. But Long Chun rarely walked the normal path. His actions were always unfathomable to others. Long Chun walked toward the heart of the cursed area and saw a human skeleton in tattered robes holding a rusty sword. The blade plunged into the head of a massive creature. A 30-meter devil creature with silver wings. Silver wing heaven devil? Long Chun whispered in shock. He hadn't expected to encounter a silver wing heaven devil here. Though it was much smaller than the ones he had seen before, the aura it emitted was unmistakable. He couldn't be wrong. A six-vein devil emperor. Long Chun felt its powerful aura and was taken aback. To find such a being at the edge of the inner region was unexpected. This meant that even at this distance from the core, one needed to be at least on this level to participate in the ancient battle. That realization sent a chill down his spine. Suddenly, a strange sound came from the silver wing heaven devil's head, startling Long Chun and making him leap back in alarm. Long Chun's eyes widened in disbelief as the corpse of the silver wing heaven devil moved. But then he saw the source of the movement, the human skeleton in tattered robes. It emitted strange, erratic fluctuations, and the rusty sword in its grasp shuddered as if still gripped by some lingering force. Even after being dead for so many years, you are still suppressing this devil, Long Chun murmured, a note of admiration in his voice. It's been hard on you. This human expert's body had long since decayed. His bones were crumbling, yet a special power continued to suppress the silver wing heaven devil. This power came from an undying will and a rock-solid foundation that would never change. In truth, his physical body had long since reached its limit, and a light touch would instantly turn it to dust. Yet, against the might of the silver wing heaven devil, it had held on. Long Chun was deeply moved. The aura of the skeleton revealed that this human expert had likely been at the peak of the human emperor realm. Yet, he had personally slain and subdued a six-vein devil emperor, a feat that required unimaginable willpower. Long Chun took out a coffin and approached the human corpse with great reverence. Using his spiritual strength, he gently enveloped the body, preparing to give it a proper resting place. Senior, it's all over now. Rest in peace. Leave the future to us. As if hearing his words, the skeletal hands slowly released their grip on the sword's hilt. Long Chun did not dare to touch the corpse directly, for even the lightest physical contact would reduce it to dust. This hero deserved a grand burial, not to be forgotten in such a way. With delicate precision, Long Chun guided the body into the coffin with his spiritual strength. Afterward, he turned his attention to the rusty sword, which lay beside the corpse. Its spirit had long since perished, but its will and the will of its master remained, eternal, undying. Long Chun could still feel the sword's powerful desire to slay devils. One man, one sword. Their hatred for the devil race had not faded, not even in death, and not even after the erosion of time itself. Would those animals who allied themselves with the devil creatures feel ashamed if they saw this scene? Long Chun sighed inside. You call them animals, so how could they feel ashamed? In my opinion, just kill them like you did in the last battle. Why waste words? If it were me, I wouldn't even give them a warning. That's a waste of spit, Evil Moon remarked disdainfully. You can't say that, the Earth Cauldron interjected before Long Chun could respond. By giving them a chance, the choice is theirs. If they refuse to listen, then that's their fault and you can have a clear conscience. Would your conscience not be clear if you didn't give them a warning? We're not here to be saviors. Why waste time saving fools? People flock to those like themselves, so you can judge them by the company they keep. Tell me, would you expect to find a good person in a group of villains? Retorted Evil Moon sharply. Long Chun blinked in surprise. Evil Moon's perspective was unusually insightful. Its strength wasn't the only thing growing, its clarity of thought was sharpening too. It had a point. Would a good person end up staying with a group of bastards? Sooner or later, they'd either be destroyed or absorbed by that darkness. Thinking back to how he had given them a warning, Long Chun felt that perhaps his warning had indeed been unnecessary. The Earth Cauldron was at a loss for words for a long time before it replied. Still, having your heart at peace is a good thing. TCH, you might as well have not said anything. I don't believe that with Long Chun's vision, he wouldn't be able to differentiate between good and bad people. Give them a chance? Even if they survive because Long Chun scared them, what happens next? Do you think they'll suddenly change? No. They'll just congratulate themselves for being clever and continue their wicked ways. Evil Moon sneered, unimpressed. Both Long Chun and the Earth Cauldron fell silent, caught off guard by Evil Moon's bluntness. Long Chun gave it a thumbs up with a wry smile. Evil Moon, you're really getting wiser. With nothing to counter its point, Long Chun could only offer praise, knowing that challenging Evil Moon would likely lead to more harsh words. Long Chun didn't mind the criticism himself, but he was mindful of the Earth Cauldron. Tage, I don't need your praise, Evil Moon scoffed. I just think you do well to avoid all these unnecessary gestures. The old cauldron says keeping your heart at peace is good. But isn't forcing yourself to act a certain way simply a lack of confidence? How can anyone lacking confidence reach the pinnacle of power? You can only reach your peak when you trust fully in yourself. Long Chun nodded. It seemed that these words had been simmering in Evil Moon for some time and were finally spilling out in rapid succession. You understand these principles, but your actions don't match them. You're still walking on tiptoe all the time. Why can't you be more like? Evil Moon suddenly stopped mid-sentence, realizing it had gone too far. Sorry. The awkward pause hung in the air. Long Chun and the Earth Cauldron both knew exactly who Evil Moon had been about to mention, but that was a taboo subject. Long Chun preferred not to hear it. The white-robed Long Chun had been ruthless, killing without hesitation. Every time he appeared, he would decide who lived and who died. That confidence and domineeringness had greatly affected Evil Moon. Though Long Chun was its trusted life and death comrade, Evil Moon couldn't help but prefer the unrestrained confidence of the white-robed Long Chun. In the past, Long Chun had also been like that, looking down on the rest of the world with a fierce, undaunting gaze. However, the passage of time seemed to have ground away his sharpness. Evil Moon understood why Long Chun had changed, but it still wished that when he faced critical choices, he could tap back into that former confidence without hesitation. During the last battle, Long Chen's boldness and decisive ruthlessness had been exactly what Evil Moon wanted to see. However, there were some particular details that it didn't like, which was why it was suddenly speaking out. In its eagerness, Evil Moon had nearly mentioned the white-robed Long Chun, a comparison that was akin to an insult. Regretful for bringing it up, Evil Moon grew silent but couldn't take it back. The atmosphere grew rather awkward. Long Chun sat in quiet contemplation for a while, then a small smile broke his expression. He isn't a taboo subject. After all, he is my heart devil, a part of me. Perhaps I was too strict in suppressing him, and that only made him grow. Evil Moon, you're right. Maybe there's something to learn from him. It could even curb his influence. Ha ha ha. That's right. Anyone who opposes you, fight and kill them. Evil Moon exclaimed, gratified that Long Chun didn't get angry and even seemed to agree with it. Just as the moment of camaraderie settled in, a sudden change occurred. The silver wing heaven devil, which had been lying lifeless just moments before, abruptly stood up. Its wizened eyes locked onto Long Chun, and with a guttural roar, a sharp claw raked toward him. This silver wing heaven devil had just stood up when Long Chen's casual wave reduced it to dust. His hand didn't even make contact. The mere force of his gesture obliterated it. Although the silver wing heaven devil had decayed to the point that it couldn't even endure a single blow, its ferocious aura had not weakened in the slightest. Long Chun could hardly imagine the terror it would pose if it were still alive. These ancient experts had sacrificed their lives battling these savage devil creatures, buying precious time for the 9 heavens and 10 lands to recover. But how many descendants even remembered their sacrifice? Long Chun thought grimly that if these heroes could see how their descendants now betrayed each other and colluded with devils, they might die of outrage. Long Chun placed the remains into a coffin. The Wind God Sea Pavilion had given them many coffins, saying that if they had a chance, they should do their best to bring back their senior's remains. Their heroic spirits could rest in peace within the Wind God Sea Pavilion. As Long Chun ventured deeper, he encountered more battlegrounds, but some scenes enraged him. He found relatively intact corpses, clearly human but horribly desecrated. Someone had torn off their emperor runes, studying them as mere artifacts, then discarded the rest as worthless remains. Based on the markings, this was done in the recent era. This was blasphemy, an unforgivable insult to the heroes who had died defending the 9 heavens and 10 lands. Although the experts who entered the Wind Domain battlefield weren't necessarily human, all those who perished here had died protecting the 9 heavens and 10 lands. Without their sacrifices, the 9 heavens and 10 lands would be in ruins. How could they treat their saviors like this? Were they worse than animals? If only time could be reversed. I'd hunt them down and kill every last one of them. Long Chun muttered, his fists clenched. This kind of disrespect was infuriating. Long Chun held little hope of finding anything for himself here, so he respectfully gathered the remains of these ancient warriors. On some bodies, he noticed a particular arm bone etched with runes, some kind of cultivation technique. However, the runes alone were too fragmented for Long Chun to deduce the full technique, and he didn't have the time to attempt it. Once he handed these remains to the Wind God Sea Pavilion, perhaps they could uncover the knowledge inscribed in these bones. These fallen warriors had been powerful, leaving behind remnants of their life's wisdom for someone worthy to inherit. Long Chun also found several weapons. Unfortunately, they were badly damaged, and their item spirits had long since dissipated. Their runes were dim and indistinguishable. However, Long Chun still gathered them as they were existences he respected. Their masters were heroes, so these weapons also deserved the same treatment. Watching Long Chun handle these remnants with reverence, Evil Moon and the Earth Cauldron felt confused but proud. The Earth Cauldron sometimes thought that Long Chun was foolish, and Evil Moon often found his actions overly cautious. Yet, despite these feelings, they couldn't help but be drawn to him. The Earth Cauldron didn't fully understand why it had so hastily conducted the Master Acknowledgement ceremony with Long Chun. By all logic, Long Chun wasn't its ideal master. But now it started to become clear. What kept them by his side wasn't power or destiny. It was how he viewed them. For Long Chen, they were never just weapons or tools to be used and discarded. He regarded them as comrades and cherished them like brothers. In his eyes, they were family. That's enough. These warriors knew the risk they faced. To die on the battlefield is better than rotting away, living a worthless life, muttered Evil Moon, moved but still nudging Long Chen to press on. Though Evil Moon lived for combat and slaughter, it understood the warrior's pride. Back in the Martial Heaven Continent's final battle, it would have rather sacrificed itself than be shielded by Long Chen. Although Evil Moon was also correct, Long Chen still collected any bodies he found on his way. That didn't take too much time. The further Long Chen went, the darker the world became, limiting his vision. As his eyes adjusted, he started to see several silver wing heaven devils roaming aimlessly across the barren landscape. Though soulless, their bodies remained intact, and the moment Long Chen approached, they immediately attacked him. Long Chen punched one of them, blowing it apart. However, this silver wing heaven devil was stronger than the previous one he encountered. Its body was more solid and resistant to his strikes. Time blurred as he ventured deeper into the shadows. Human remains became rare, but the number of silver wing heaven devils steadily increased. At first, their decayed bodies crumbled easily under his attacks. However, as he moved further, their physical forms grew stronger, no longer turning to dust but instead breaking into chunks of dense flesh. Eventually, the creatures even started to bleed devil blood when struck, evidence of their extraordinary resilience. Long Chen tested throwing their bodies into the black soil, and to his surprise, he found that they were still capable of releasing a faint life chi. Even after countless years, these corpses retained such power. The life force of the silver wing heaven devils was truly terrifying. Long Chen had been walking in a straight line this entire time. However, while it seemed straight, he actually went in a curve, gradually deviating from the place he had agreed to meet Tang Wan'er and the others. He ended up entering the core region from a completely different direction. The further he went, the more silver wing heaven devils he encountered. Furthermore, their blood chi grew denser, and their bodies, once stiff and slow, now moved with unsettling agility, showing signs of vitality rather than decay. Most of them were five-vein devil emperors and above. Their physical strength was incredibly strong, and even in death, they possessed immense power. Boom! Long Chen exchanged blows with a six-vein devil emperor, his punch shattering the devil's arm and sending chunks of flesh flying. The impact felt no different from battling a living devil creature. The number of silver wing heaven devils here is increasing. Tang Wan'er and the others should be arriving now. I should pick up the pace, I don't want to keep them waiting. With that, Long Chen surged forward, plowing through the devils in his path. What he didn't realize, however, was that his new course led directly toward a massive black vortex. A swirling void that resembled the gaping maw of a monstrous fiend, silently waiting to pull him into its depths. Long Chen sped up as silver wing heaven devils flooded into view. At first, they appeared only in small numbers, but soon clusters of 7 or 8 attacked together, relentlessly converging on him. As he fought through them, he noticed their blood chi and spiritual energy increasing. These creatures were no longer mindless corpses. It felt like some kind of power had blessed them with spirits and wills. What is going on? This isn't at all like what Yi Lingkong described. Long Chen was alarmed by this discovery. The number of silver wing heaven devils kept increasing, and they got stronger and stronger. Now, they possessed some fighting instincts and even started using divine abilities. As corpses, they weren't that strong. But if a small group were to be surrounded by so many of them, they would be in great danger. Long Chen couldn't help feeling worried for the Hidden Dragon Legion. As Long Chen sped along, streaks of lightning shot out of him, piercing the heads of these devil corpses, targeting the devil's weak points. Their heads. Lei Linger dispatched them quickly, allowing Long Chen to continue forward. After killing them, she tossed their bodies into the primal chaos space, where the black soil devoured them and released vast quantities of life energy. Somehow, even these ancient corpses exuded as much life force as freshly killed emperor-level devil beasts. No, something's wrong. It's like something's feeding them blood chi and life energy, trying to bring them back to life. Long Chen had a bad feeling. The air thickened with an unfamiliar aura and laws he didn't recognize, bending space-time around him. A strange sensation crawled over his skin, setting every nerve on edge. What he didn't realize was that he was drifting dangerously close to a massive, hidden vortex, the kind that twisted even perception itself. As Long Chen advanced further, he saw the silver wing heaven devils behaving in ways he hadn't expected. They no longer wandered aimlessly and sat cross-legged as if in meditation. But the moment they sensed him, they attacked, their hollow eyes filling with sudden clarity. They struck with a viciousness that seemed almost alive. When Long Chen shattered their arm with a punch, it regenerated instantly, and his wrist throbbed with pain. "They can regenerate?" Long Chen exclaimed, shocked. How could a corpse regenerate its limb? These devils were no longer bound by the limitations of corpses. Long Chen hurled a white bone spear at the devil's head. The spear was something he had seized from Ying Tianhua. After all, Evil Moon disdained killing these devil corpses, so Long Chen just helped Guiyang get a head start. When devil blood soaked the white bone spear, Long Chen sensed fluctuations from it. Its dragon will was slowly awakening. "Do you smell something familiar?" Long Chen smiled at the spear. The weapon seemed to resonate with the battlefield, almost as if it remembered a past steeped in the blood of these creatures. With Lei Linger aiding him, they pushed through the horde, clearing devils and feeding their bodies to the primal chaos space. As the white bone spear was soaked in devil blood, its desire to kill awakened. Its dim runes also started to glimmer. The white bone spear became as quick as lightning, killing the silver wing heaven devils rapidly. At this moment, Long Chen was shocked by the number and power of silver wing heaven devils around him. He felt like he had entered their hive. The space around him twisted and turned, causing him to be unable to tell where he was going. He could only charge forward. However, the deeper he pressed, the more the devils evolved. They now had swirling runes around their bodies, emitting dazzling silver light. Primal chaos chi pulsed through them, and their blood fields created a suppression that weighed heavily on Long Chen. "What is going on?" Long Chen was stunned, having no idea what was going on. Unbeknownst to him, space-time was rapidly changing around him. Space twisted, and suddenly his hand was empty. The spear was gone. It was so bizarre that he had never experienced it before. Even Lei Linger was gone. Panic bloomed as he realized he'd also lost his connection to Dragonbone Evil Moon, the Earth Cauldron, even the primal chaos space itself. All of a sudden, a six-veined silver wing heaven devil tore through the air, slashing at him with a claw. However, this one wasn't a corpse. It was alive, with six-colored runes blazing from its body, exuding a pressure that was even more terrifying than half-step divine emperors. Long Chen could not comprehend what he was seeing. The claw was so fast that it instantly arrived right in front of him. Boom! Long Chen roared, driving his fist forward with explosive force. Stars spun across his knuckles, but as his strike connected, a sharp pain shot through his hand. The silver wing heaven devil's claw had raked across his fist, leaving deep cuts. Long Chen stared at his fist in disbelief. His astral energy had failed to block the claw. The silver wing heaven devil twisted in the air, and its silver wings sliced down at Long Chen, emitting a suffocating pressure. Long Chen had never encountered such a terrifying silver wing heaven devil before, so he felt like he was in a nightmare. These fiends were everywhere, cutting off any path of escape, forcing him to stand his ground. Bracing himself, he crossed his arms to absorb the impact. A shockwave erupted from the clash, and he barely held back a mouthful of blood. His mind spun. What was happening here? These devils were hundreds of times stronger than before. Just as he was about to summon the 8-star battle armor, a radiant sword slashed through the sky, obliterating the surrounding devils in a dazzling sweep. A beautiful woman appeared, seized his arm, and pulled him away from the swarm. As she lifted Long Chen into the air, he finally looked around, and the scene before him left him utterly speechless. Long Chun found himself on a vast battlefield stretching beyond the horizon, where an unending horde of silver wing heaven devils surged from all directions. Each devil was cloaked in primal chaos chi, radiating a terrifyingly oppressive aura unlike anything Long Chun had ever encountered. The one who had saved him was a slender woman wearing extremely ancient robes, surrounded by 3 streams of heaven vein dragon chi, marking her as a 3-vein heaven saint. Yet, her power left Long Chun astonished. Despite her cultivation base, she could drag Long Chun out of that encirclement of silver wing heaven devils. Wherever she went, those terrifying silver wing heaven devils collapsed. Suddenly, a barrier appeared in front of them, and the woman stepped into it with Long Chun. Only then did Long Chun see that there was a group of young men and women inside. Though bloodied and exhausted, each of them bore such a strong aura that it defied anything he'd seen in heaven saints before. Seeing Long Chun, the group stared in astonishment. The woman who had rescued him eyed him sharply, her voice carrying both disbelief and a hint of scolding. "Little brother, how did you end up here? With your weak cultivation, were you trying to get yourself killed?" Long Chun found that he had no idea how to reply. Suddenly, one of them cried out, "His aura!" Instantly, several waves of divine sense swept over Long Chun. After that, all of them revealed expressions of absolute disbelief. A white-robed man, who seemed to be the leader of this group, asked Long Chun cautiously, "Little brother, are you not from this era?" "Not from this era?" Long Chun echoed, bewildered. But then, he noticed something strange. The spiritual chi here was incredibly dense, far richer than anything in the heaven essence world. The heavenly Tao laws felt foreign yet deeply attuned to him. It was as if the very essence of heaven and earth was nourishing him, embracing him as its own. This beautiful feeling was something he had never felt before. This was a completely different world. He felt like someone who had moved from the hands of an evil stepmother to the warm arms of a mother. He was stunned, realizing he could see Grand Tao runes floating openly, primal chaos chi permeating the air, and laws forming like orderly chains to maintain this world. When Long Chun looked at the young experts, he sensed the dense primal chaos chi in their bodies. In a sudden, chilling realization, Long Chun understood. He had somehow crossed into the primal chaos era. "Little brother, are you really from a different space-time?" asked the white-robed man, his voice quivering with excitement when he saw Long Chun's expression. The others were also extremely emotional, staring at him in disbelief as if he were a mythical monster. The realization struck Long Chun like a bolt of lightning. During his fight with the Silver Wing Heaven Devils, he must have passed through a spatial gate, ending up in an entirely different era. Long Chun had no idea how it occurred, yet somehow he had arrived here alone, without the Earth Cauldron, Dragonbone Evil Moon, or even his primal chaos space. He wasn't sure if he was truly here in flesh or if only his spirit had crossed over. Seeing the hope in their eyes, Long Chun nodded. This confirmation made the group shout in excitement, and the woman who had saved him even shed a tear. She exclaimed, "That's great! That means our race isn't defeated. We will survive." The despair that had weighed on them was washed away, and they immediately bombarded him with questions. "Little brother, can you tell us what happened to the 9 heavens and 10 lands? And have you heard of the Heavenly River Esoteric Sect?" Noticing the silver river emblem on their collars, Long Chun guessed that it was a mark of their sect. However, Long Chun truly had never heard of such a sect and couldn't risk telling them it no longer existed. That would be too great of a blow to them. Yet, he couldn't lie either, so in the end, he thickened his face and said, "The 9 heavens and 10 lands of my era have nearly collapsed. Humanity's habitable area has been reduced to 100 domains and 1,000 prefectures." "Heavens, it's that bad?" one gasped. "Don't interrupt. Let this little brother speak," urged another person. Long Chun continued, "In my time, spiritual chi is sparse, and primal chaos chi is almost non-existent, slowing cultivation and weakening our powers. But even in these harsh conditions, the human race has been resilient, growing in the tiny cracks of our world." human factions are rapidly proliferating, to the point of having intense interactions with devil creatures. Long Chen found himself at a loss. How could he tell these warriors that, in his era, many humans had forgotten their hatred for the devils and had even started colluding with them? How hurt would these noble souls be? Fortunately, these warriors didn't seem to notice the hidden meaning in his answer. To them, any mention of interactions with devil creatures implied fierce battles, and they took his words as a sign of humanity's continued resistance. Overjoyed, they shared relieved glances, unaware of the darker truth Long Chen withheld. As for the Heavenly River esoteric sect, Long Chen added, I haven't heard of it, but I've just entered an unknown world in the Sovereign Emperor Heaven. According to what I know, ancient legacies still persist, and with my limited strength, I've yet to explore much. You are all dragons amongst men, so your descendants will surely be peerless heroes. I believe the Heavenly River esoteric sect has survived. Although they were a bit disappointed, they were still happy that the human race had survived this war. Casting a grim look over the endless wave of silver wing heaven devils surrounding them, the white-robed man said, Our barrier won't hold much longer. Reinforcements won't reach us in time, so it seems our fate is sealed here. But knowing that the human race has endured, we can die without regrets. These warriors of the Heavenly River esoteric sect were an elite force, and they had fought tirelessly against the devil creatures. Yet they'd been betrayed, left stranded in this deadly situation by traitors from within their own ranks. Long Chen's heart twisted in anguish at the revelation. So even in this ancient era, the scourge of betrayal ran deep, festering like a rot that spanned generations. Brother, the white-robed man called, you fell through a spatial gate. We must send you back before it's too late. With a swift motion, the white-robed man raised his hand, and the others gripped their weapons. Boom! But before they could act, a deafening explosion shattered the barrier. The silver wing heaven devils poured in, a relentless wave of claws, wings, and chaos bearing down on them. Countless silver wing heaven devils surged down upon them. The white-robed man roared, his heavenly fate disc trembling as 6 heaven-vein dragon cheese coiled around him, their power unfurling like spectral dragons. Long Chen felt a jolt of surprise as the man's aura surged. His aura was thicker than that of the half-step divine emperors he'd encountered in his era. So, this is the power of the primal chaos era's experts. As others summoned their heavenly fate discs and dragon chi, their blades cut a deadly arc through the silver wing heaven devils. Shinrue, protect this little brother. We must find the spatial channel and send him back, shouted the white-robed man. Big brother Yunfeng, don't worry. Even if I have to die, I'll make sure he's safe, responded the woman called Shinrue, the one who had saved Long Chen earlier. Without hesitation, Shinrue kept hold of Long Chen's arm, charging forward under everyone's protection. Meanwhile, Yunfeng displayed incredible prowess. His heaven-vein dragon chi emitted indistinct dragon roars, and with a slash of his sword, he annihilated countless silver wing heaven devils. Fifth brother, sense any spatial fluctuations. We must find the location of the spatial channel, commanded Yunfeng. The youngest of the group, a shy-looking big guy with only 2 heaven-vein dragon chi, immediately activated a golden formation disc. In an instant, runes shimmered, and a needle formed atop the disc, spinning rapidly before pointing to a direction with strong spatial energy. It's that way, he quickly exclaimed in delight. There are strong spatial fluctuations over there. Go! Yunfeng shouted decisively, leading everyone in that direction. With Yunfeng in the lead, they tore through the devil blockade. Though they were a mere 20 in number, they fought with unbreakable unity. They quickly charged out of the blockade of silver wing heaven devils, and the pressure weakened as they sped forward. As they broke through, Long Chen could see countless other warriors clashing with the silver wing heaven devils, but the devils were everywhere. He watched in horror as some experts were ripped apart by the devil claws, their battle cries swallowed by chaos. My children, remember to avenge us. Kill these damn bastards. Vengeance! 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 A furious roar rang out from ahead. Boom! Following that, a heaven-shaking explosion occurred. An expert had watched as his comrades were slain one by one until he was the last man standing. At that point, he chose to self-detonate, releasing a wave of destruction that blasted apart the surrounding Silver Wing Heaven Devils. Big Brother Yun Feng, the disciples we lost contact with are just up ahead, shouted one of them suddenly. Long Chun glanced over to see another group of their comrades trapped and surrounded, barely holding off the onslaught. Save them, shouted Shinrue. It's too late. They won't last long enough for us to reach them, Yun Feng replied, his voice heavy with grief. Long Chun had the same opinion as Yun Feng. After all, the difference between the two sides was too great. Long Chun and the others couldn't blast through those Silver Wing Heaven Devils in time to save those disciples. A few moments after Yun Feng said this, the small group was annihilated. Witnessing their allies torn to pieces, they pressed forward, pain etched on their faces. However, there was no time to mourn. They had a mission. Get Long Chun to the spatial gate so he could return to his world. Go! They crested a mountain and saw an even bloodier battlefield ahead. Here, the Silver Wing Heaven Devils were joined by towering, three-eyed creatures wielding white-bone sabers. These blood-blade three-eyed devils were monstrous, with no mouths or ears, just three ominous eyes on their faces. While their build was similar to humans, they were exceptionally sturdy. All of them emitted powerful blood chi. Wherever their sabers went, blood followed. They slashed through void and flesh alike, scattering the blood of human warriors. Damn! It's the blood-blade three-eyed devils. We can't block their bone sabers, someone cried. Unlike the Silver Wing Heaven Devils, these devils could kill them with a single strike if they weren't careful. Let's go around, proposed one person. However, Yun Feng's gaze fell upon a flickering spatial gate up ahead, a swirling vortex that seemed to hold traces of the wind domain battlefield's aura. We've never seen a gate like this before, Yun Feng said. If it vanishes, this little brother will never make it back. We have to send him through. Turning back to Longchen, Yun Feng said, Little brother, you come from the future. Fate must have led you here, and your return could shape the future of the 9 heavens and 10 lands. Even if we all fall, we will get you to that gate. The group's eyes shone with newfound determination, and Shinrue's grip on Long Chen's arm tightened. Yun Feng said solemnly, Little brother, every person has their own mission, and yours is to return to your world. No matter what happens here, ignore it and remember your duty. Yun Feng's meaning was unmistakable. In Long Chen's world, they were already ancient history. No matter what happened to them here, it wouldn't change anything. All that mattered now was getting Long Chun to the spatial gate. Long Chun looked at Yun Feng, a stranger who had shown him nothing but unwavering sincerity. He was even willing to sacrifice everything for him. As a result, Long Chun felt a surge of gratitude and resolve, moved by this man's selfless sincerity. But there was no time for words. The devils spotted them. With a fierce shout, Yun Feng charged forward, and the others closed ranks around Long Chun, shielding him. Boom! A thunderous explosion ripped through the air as a 6-vein Emperor Blood-Blade 3-Eye Devil swung its massive bone saber toward them. Yun Feng intercepted it, deflecting the deadly strike, but the impact sent him stumbling back, halting their advance. Not good. They have Heaven Devil Emperor blood within their ranks. In that single exchange, they recognized that this was no ordinary foe. It was royalty among the Blood-Blade 3-Eye Devils. They hadn't anticipated encountering something so formidable. You foolish humans, the devil sneered, its 3 eyes gleaming with cruel intelligence. Resistance is futile. All that awaits you is death. Suddenly, its eyes locked onto Long Chun. Sensing something strange, the devil's eyes flashed, and it lunged toward Long Chun like a bolt of black lightning. Take him away, Yun Feng shouted, stepping forward to block the young king of the Blood-Blade 3-Eye Devil race. Their luck was garbage today. This devil king possessed the purest bloodline of their race, making its innate blood blade unstoppable. From a single blow, Yun Feng's insides were already battered. While he forced himself to suppress his injuries with a secret art, he knew he couldn't do it for long. He knew this was his end, but he was determined to buy Long Chun and the others a few precious seconds, no matter the cost. "Brother Feng," his comrades cried out in horror. They had known Yun Feng for years and understood the gravity of his words. Although they had braced themselves for this battle, watching Yun Feng sacrifice himself was something they couldn't accept. For the first time in their lives, they hesitated to follow his orders. Boom! The Devil King's bone saber came crashing down, shattering Yun Feng's sword and sending him flying, blood spraying from his lips. "Brother Feng!" One of his comrades caught him, and Yun Feng, seeing they hadn't fled, was both panicked and furious. He spat out another mouthful of blood. The Devil King's eyes gleamed with a wicked intelligence as it prepared another strike. It mocked. "The human race is about to be destroyed. Is this little fellow a gamebreaker you called over from that strange space? Ha ha ha! How laughable! You can die together. Everyone, block it together!" Someone shouted. And they all readied themselves to face the devastating attack. Yun Feng closed his eyes in pain. Even if they managed to block this blow, they would be too injured to survive a second blow. In the end, it would make no difference. They would all die here. Just then, Xinrui raised her sword to join the others, but a hand suddenly grasped it. "You?" Xinrui turned in shock to see Long Chun holding her weapon. However, there was no time to question his actions. The instant Long Chun saw the Devil King's overwhelming strength, he knew their odds. Without hesitation, he sprang into action. With a single step, Long Chun appeared to the left of the Blood Blade Three-Eye Devil Race's king just as it swung its blade. Long Chen's sudden appearance was so bizarre that the Devil King was caught off guard. Long Chen's sword struck the Devil King right at the black bulge on its forehead. A strange, vulnerable-looking spot that wasn't one of its three eyes. Though he'd never encountered this creature before, his years of brutal combat had honed his instincts to sense a weak point. The precision of Long Chen's attack was flawless. Speed, angle, and timing aligned in one perfect strike, and as his sword pierced forward, starlight erupted along its edge. Xinrui and the others were shocked. When she had first rescued Long Chun, he'd been disoriented, unfamiliar with his surroundings, and disconnected from the Earth Cauldron, Dragonbone Evil Moon, the Primal Chaos Space, and Lei Linger and Huolinger. The unfamiliar heavenly Tao laws of this realm had also hindered him, making even the Silver Wing Heaven Devils a threat to his life. However, now he had grown accustomed to the laws of this place. With three bloodlines circulating in harmony and his astral energy back to full power, his confidence surged. Until now, due to not being familiar with the situation here, he simply listened to everyone else's arrangements. But seeing them in danger, he didn't hesitate to take action. In a single motion, Long Chin delivered a killing blow. The Blood Blade Three-Eye Devil King clearly hadn't expected such a devastating attack from an Earth Saint whose aura carried only faint traces of primal chaos. Alarmed, it abruptly abandoned its own attack, pulling its bone blade back and summoning layered defensive runes over its forehead. Long Chen's heart pounded. This creature was a nightmare from the primal chaos era. Even in the midst of an attack, it could instantly summon such powerful defenses. Without Evil Moon, he wasn't certain he could break through them. However, just as his sword was about to strike, it twisted in the air. Instead of striking its head, it swung at an unthinkable angle, striking the Devil King's wrist. Astral energy surged from his blade, severing the wrist cleanly and sending the bone saber flying. The Devil King let out a roar that shook the air, only to be abruptly silenced. Without missing a beat, Long Chun tossed Xinrui's sword back to her, gripping the massive white bone blade the devil had wielded. As the starry sea in his dantian swirled, it released astral energy like an erupting volcano into the bone blade. Using Xinrui's divine weapon, Long Chun had held back, careful not to damage it with excessive power. But this devil's bone blade held no such limitations. He poured his full energy into it. Even if the weapon broke, it was of no consequence to him. He swung the bone blade at the Devil King's head in one fluid motion. In a split second, he transitioned from borrowing Shinrue's sword to a deadly surprise attack, to severing the Devil King's wrist and claiming its weapon as his own. It was all so fast and precise that his movements blurred together. The bone saber cleaved through its owner's skull, splitting its head with ease. Its runic defenses proved useless against its own weapon, which cut through as if slicing a watermelon. Yet, even after being halved, the Devil King's life force still lingered. So Long Chun drove his palm into its chest, channeling all his might. One star fall. Boom! With a thunderous explosion, the Devil King's body shattered, its life force vanishing in an instant. The 9-star line! Yun Feng and the others murmured in shock, their eyes wide as they saw the full extent of Long Chen's power. Yun Feng and the others could hardly believe their eyes as they stared at the starlight now enveloping the bone blade. There are 9-star heirs even in the future. Incredible. There's hope yet for the 9 heavens and 10 lands, exclaimed Yun Feng, his voice thick with excitement. As long as the 9-star lineage continues, the Star Masters will live on. The human race will never fall. Shinrue murmured, gazing at Long Chun with awe. Suddenly, countless blood-blade 3-eyed devils swarmed toward Long Chun, as if driven by a shared instinct. Whether it was due to him having slain one of their leaders or recognizing his identity, no one knew. So be it then. All out it is. Long Chen's voice echoed as he invoked his 8-star battle armor, the divine ring of 8 colors manifesting behind him. The stars above trembled, and the very 10,000 Daos seemed to rumble in resonance. As Long Chun felt the world's energy flow to him without resistance, he sensed himself as the pampered son of the heavens. The heavens poured their power into him as if he were their chosen. His spirit surged. In this world, he felt like he held the heavens and earth in his grasp. He was no longer merely a warrior. He was a god, standing amidst the stars. Everything in this universe was in the palm of his hand. It was like he had merged with the world. It was like the heavens were a warm mother entrusting all her hopes and power to him. Long Chun quivered. Long Chun had never felt such profound harmony with the heavenly Daos before. For the first time, he understood their pure will. Perhaps, in the distant past, the heavenly Daos were truly meant to guide, not oppress, before something in them changed. As his 8 stars blazed, astral energy flooded him, and his starry sky battle robe shimmered with unrestrained power. Just like that, the blood-blade 3-eyed devils charging at him were blown to smithereens. Long Chun felt limitless now. Usually, he relied on 2 sources of astral energy: the starry sea within his dantian and the astral energy he drew when he linked with the stars above. At first, Long Chun had relied on the astral energy inside his dantian to fight. But later on, he touched upon a technique to form a resonance with the stars in the sky, drawing their vast power. Initially, he could only gather a very limited amount of astral energy from the stars, tapping into perhaps 10% of his dantian's power. But over time, his mastery grew, and now he could draw equal amounts from both, effectively doubling his astral energy reserves. However, Long Chun always conserved his astral energy as it was the core of his strength. In every battle, he reserved some energy, always preparing for unexpected threats. But in this place, he felt like the astral energy of heaven and earth was limitless. He could freely absorb as much as he wanted. A 9-star heir has appeared. Kill him together. What fat prey! The shout came from a man wearing a golden crown and snakeskin robes, lunging at Long Chun with a serpentine spear in hand, his eyes gleaming with excitement. Traitor! Long Chun snarled, feeling the unmistakable presence of demonic chi radiating from the man. Despite being a native of the 9 heavens and 10 lands, he stood alongside the devils, unchallenged by them, a clear sign of his betrayal. In the distance, multiple terrifying auras rose and swarmed over. Little brother, you can't fight them all. You must return to your world. Yun Feng shouted, charging at one of the experts. We'll hold them off. Ant, die! The opponent, a 9-vein heaven saint, sneered as his explosive aura hurled Yun Feng backward, rendering him helpless. Ha ha ha! Fortune smiles on me today. I never thought I'd encounter a 9-star heir here. The nine-vein heaven saint laughed as he was the first to reach Long Chun. Traitor, die! Long Chun shouted, lunging forward with the bone blade. Don't kill him. Capture him alive, ordered the crowned man from behind. Don't worry, he'll be breathing when I'm done. But first, I want to see if these legendary 9-star heirs are as strong as they claim, sneered the nine-vein heaven saint. With an arrogant smile, he lowered his cultivation to the earth saint realm, suppressing his heaven-vein dragon chi entirely. Boom! With a resounding boom, Long Chen's blade clashed against the heaven saint's saber. Both were forced back evenly matched. What? Long Chun was shocked and enraged. The two of them were evenly matched? He hadn't expected to encounter such a terrifying existence within the same realm in this place. The heaven saint laughed mockingly, blood trickling from his mouth. Though slightly wounded, he was unfazed. He unrivaled within the same realm? What a joke. 9-star heirs aren't that strong. He exuded immense confidence, eager to test if the legends about 9-star heirs were true. In his arrogance, he was willing to gamble with his own life. Though injured, the 9-star heir was far weaker than he had anticipated. With a sinister smile, he lunged at Long Chun, his saber aimed directly at his chest. To everyone's surprise, Long Chen's starry sky battle robe was torn through effortlessly, and the saber pierced his flesh. Yun Feng and the others gasped in horror, their hearts sinking as they rushed to him. They couldn't let him die here. His attacker was equally stunned. This strike had been to provoke a reaction from Long Chun. After that, he would adjust the following attacks based on Long Chen's response. However, Long Chun neither blocked nor dodged. As the saber embedded into his body, Long Chen's astral energy erupted in a violent surge. The sword became shrouded in stars, and the attacker froze in shock as the energy poured into him. He was horrified to find that he was paralyzed, unable to control his own body. Long Chun raised the white bone blood blade high above his head, and with a devastating slash, it came crashing down toward that expert's head. The bone blade blew the head apart, instantly killing this expert. However, Long Chen's anger persisted. He had not expected that even after his astral energy was strengthened in the primal chaos era, he still couldn't crush a 9-vein heaven saint. To make it worse, his opponent had suppressed his cultivation to the earth saint realm. Long Chun had never endured such humiliation before. His rage felt like the wrath of the heavens itself, summoning torrents of astral and heavenly Tao energy around him. Just as that person's corpse thumped to the ground, space quivered. The crowned man charged over, with 9 heaven-vein dragon chi condensing into his hand. Let's see what a legendary 9-star heir is truly made of. The man sneered, unfazed by his comrade's death. Without a flicker of emotion, he launched his palm at Long Chun, sealing all paths of retreat. Long Chen's fighting spirit ignited, and he shouted back, "Is this the might of a primal chaos-era expert? Then let me see your true strength." Long Chun had never met an equal in his own era, so when he faced a heavenly genius from the primal chaos era, his fighting spirit blazed to life. In an instant, Long Chen's starry sea quivered, and his violet chi ignited. This was the same power he'd unleashed against Yi Linfeng, igniting his astral energy, though it had damaged his meridians. But now he didn't care. He needed to go all out from the very start. Long Chun swung his blade, unleashing a wave of chi at that person and forcing him to a halt. Not bad. You can withstand my attack with only Earth Saint level power. But you're far from matching the legendary warriors of the 9 heavens, the crowned man taunted. Could it be that you're just a fake 9-star heir? Space cracked beneath the crowned man as he shot forward, his 9 heaven-vein dragon chi swirling like twin divine weapons around his hands. He attacked barehanded, but his fists felt as deadly as any weapon. In response, the bone blade danced in Long Chen's hands, unleashing over 100 slashes in 1 second, each blow clashing against his opponent's palms with a thunderous impact. After exchanging over 100 blows, Long Chun found that his opponent's Heaven Vein Dragon Chi was filled with the laws of primal chaos, which could not be broken by the bone blade in his hand. In a flash, it became clear, the experts here were nourished by primal chaos chi from birth, possessing bodies that were attuned with primal chaos laws. Unlike them, Long Chun wasn't from this world, and he couldn't absorb its primal chaos chi to the same extent. Boom! With one final exchange, the two of them separated, and Long Chun felt his blood chi churn wildly. When he stared down at his bone blade, he saw that it was now marred with over a dozen small nicks. This wasn't a good weapon for him. If only he had Evil Moon, he knew he'd have no trouble cleaving through his opponent's hands, stripping away the man's arrogance. Most hateful of all, even with heaven and earth helping him, due to the limitations of his body, he couldn't use his power properly. "Little brother, leave." Just then, heaven-shaking roars rang out, and Long Chun was shocked to find tens of thousands of figures rushing toward him. Long Chun didn't recognize any of them, yet they all charged forward, determined to protect him. "The Star Master is dead, and all 9 star heirs will be hunted down to the last. You have no hope. Just give up," shouted one of the opposing experts as they moved to intercept the newcomers. One of those newcomers was instantly slain by the crowned man's comrades. Despite knowing that they were going to die, they still charged over. The reinforcements charged over like moths drawn to the flame, but they couldn't break through the blockade of these powerful experts. One after another, they turned into blood mist in front of Long Chun. Long Chun was stunned, unable to believe it. These people didn't even know him, so why were they sacrificing themselves to protect him? Even knowing that they would die, they still charged forward. "Stop! Don't sacrifice yourselves for nothing!" Long Chun roared at those people. "It's not for nothing. The 9-star line is the hope of the human race. The Star Master couldn't have died. One day, he will return, and blood will dye the 9 heavens. The human race will return to the peak of the 10,000 races." The cry was cut short as the one shouting was struck down by an expert wielding a serpentine spear. The enemy expert sneered, "Remember, the human race is fit only to be slaves and food. Your race is weak, foolish, and inferior." Long Chen's eyes blazed with fury as the sight of the massacre unfolded before him. The world went still, colors faded. All that remained was the pounding of his own heart, each beat like thunder. When his killing intent surged, his starry sea started to churn, forming a massive whirlpool of astral energy. Suddenly, with one thunderous beat of his heart, the Feng Fu star within his starry sea shook, shattering the stars around it. After that, their fragments condensed into a strange rune upon its surface. With that rune's appearance, the Feng Fu star's aura transformed, becoming sinister, violent, bloodthirsty. It was as if a fiend had awakened, its eyes fixed upon heaven and earth. Countless runes gathered together, looking like the devil's eye, and they were embedded into the Feng Fu star. Instantly, heaven and earth froze. The 10,000 Daos stilled, and a sinister aura covered the land. At that moment, Long Chen's aura erupted, reaching an entirely new level. Then, as the same transformation happened with the Alioth star, countless runes condensed, causing Long Chen's astral energy to surge yet again. While the starry sea in his dantian didn't visibly grow, nor did it seem transformed, his Feng Fu and Alioth stars became like independent starry seas. The power within them now held more than 100 times the energy of his starry sea. As the Feng Fu, Alioth, Life Fate, Enlightenment Palace, Divine Gate, Nethergate, Violet Tower, and Nirvanic Charge stars lit up in sequence, Long Chen's astral energy surged even higher. 8 starry sky battle robes merged into a single form, and Long Chen stood like a war god of the stars, his presence vastly transformed. Space trembled around him. The 10,000 Daos rumbled. His astral aura roared wildly, sending shockwaves across the battlefield. Long Chen's eyes blazed crimson, with stars flickering deep within them. Dripping with bloodlust, His voice hissed through his clenched teeth. You say the human race is foolish, inferior, and fit only as your slaves and food? Raising the white bone blade, Long Chun sent a tremor through heaven and earth. The stars in the sky then swirled into a giant starry whirlpool around him, flowing into his bone blade. The weapon shrieked, its wild aura stunning everyone. Boom! Just as Long Chun was accumulating power, the bone blade exploded, unable to withstand the terrifying power. However, he didn't flinch. The blade's destruction only proved it wasn't fit to channel his astral energy. He might as well not use it. Suddenly, Long Chun stepped forward, stars sparking beneath his feet, leaving behind a trail of cascading crystals. In an instant, he appeared in front of his opponent, the crowned man, and a star-covered fist smashed forward. The crowned man hadn't expected Long Chun to unleash such terrifying astral energy, but he still sneered, "Now it's finally interesting. Show me just how strong the legendary power of the stars is." Boom! Their clash resounded like thunder, and the crowned man coughed blood. His 9 heaven-vein dragon chi shattered on impact. This is the true 8-star battle armor," Long Chun muttered. The 9-star hegemon body art wasn't just any technique. It was a divine ability blessed by heaven and earth from the primal chaos era, destined to guide its user on the correct path without a master. However, by his era, the laws of the heavenly Daos had completely changed. Instead of giving him pointers, the world tried to stop him with all its might. Who is the slave now? Who is the prey? Long Chun roared, stamping his foot as starlight surged under him. The blessing of heaven and earth boosted Long Chun's power, and he didn't give the crowned man a chance to react, lunging at him with a clawed hand aimed at his face. The crowned man, panicked and furious, twisted his head to dodge and countered with a kick. The human race will forever be enslaved. You will. Long Chun's claw turned out to be a feint. Then, with his left hand, he landed a vicious slap across his face, cutting his opponent's blabber. Bones breaking rang throughout the battlefield, and the crowned man was no longer crowned. His crown flew off, and his face mangled beyond recognition. In the primal chaos era, this divine ability had yet to emerge, leaving Long Chun's opponent dazed, nearly unconscious from the impact. The power behind the slap was truly shocking, crushing the crowned man. After all, as a heavenly genius of the primal chaos era, he was innately resilient, but the nourishment of the laws of primal chaos strengthened his constitution even more. Anyone else would have been reduced to fragments by that strike. Yet, even with his extraordinary physique, he was gravely wounded, his head now hideously deformed. Try talking tough again. Boss Long San specializes in curing stupid people, sneered Long Chun, lunging forward with his right hand aimed like lightning at his opponent's neck. However, just as his strike was about to land, a serpentine spear shot toward his ribs. A silent, deadly attack from the same expert who had mocked the human race. The other enemies who had been watching from the sidelines made their move. Ignoring Yun Feng and the others, they charged at Long Chun to aid the ex-crowned man. Without hesitation, Long Chun's hand shifted mid-motion, grabbing the tip of the serpentine spear. His starry sky battle robes then blazed, pouring astral energy through the weapon. The attacker recoiled in terror as his hands burst apart under the overwhelming force. He staggered back. Boom! Before the attacker could retreat, Long Chun rammed the spears but into his abdomen, the impact obliterating him into a mist of blood. In Long Chun's grip, the spear thrashed wildly, its item spirit crying out as it couldn't withstand his astral power. It was begging for mercy. Without a second thought, Long Chun threw the spear that was filled with astral energy. Like a meteor, it tore through the air, piercing more than 10 of the enemies before demolishing a colossal mountain, leaving a gaping black void in its wake. The sheer devastation left countless onlookers paralyzed with awe and fear. At last, they understood the terror that a 9-star heir embodied. With his face twisted in fury, Long Chun shot toward the man whose crown had been blasted to who knew where. He bellowed, "Today, I'll show you who the prey is. Long Chen's roar split the heavens, reverberating through the nine skies and deep into the yellow springs. It struck fear directly into the hearts of those who heard it, awakening a primal terror within them. Boom! When Long Chen's palm slammed down, a vast array of stars appeared above, shrouding the entire battlefield in their radiance. In response, the man who was slapped crownless roared, summoning a giant python manifestation. The python scales emitted brilliant divine light, which unfurled the primal chaos energy of the world. You're just a little earth saint, so what if you're a 9-star heir? I'll shatter the myth of your so-called invincibility. The bitter man shouted, channeling his bloodline power to ignite his heaven-vein dragon chi. Boom! The man blocked Long Chen's palm with his own, but it directly exploded. Everything under his elbow was gone. In the end, even after igniting his heaven-vein dragon chi, he still couldn't match Long Chen's overwhelming astral energy. With all 8 stars blazing, Long Chen's power had surged to a new height. Supported by the heavens and drawing from the stars themselves, his astral energy felt boundless. After destroying the man's hand, Long Chen crushed his fighting spirit. Horror replaced his confidence as a cold realization dawned upon him. He had been a fool to believe he could challenge a 9-star heir. In his terror, he was horrified to find that he couldn't move. Long Chen's will pinned him down, rendering him immobile, shackling his soul. In a clash between experts, the first thing they competed with was the will. If a person's will was too weak, their soul would cower, and they wouldn't be able to summon the will to resist. As their bodies froze, all that awaited them was death. Of all suppressions, bloodline, spiritual, and will, the suppression of the will was the most terrifying. It was like a nimble rat suddenly froze upon seeing a cat. When one's will was crushed, fear, anxiety, and despair would consume them, and their body wouldn't listen to them. No! The man's scream was filled with rage and regret. Long Chen's hands shot forward, piercing his chest like a pair of merciless blades. With a fierce pull, he tore the man apart, showering the battlefield in blood. As the torn pieces fell, they transformed, morphing into body parts of a colossal python. Its octagonal scales gleamed with divine light, while red flame runes glowed atop its heads. This was a primal chaos species Long Chen had never encountered before. Great 9-star heir, you have to leave. Quick, or it'll be too late, someone shouted. Countless figures were swarming over from every direction, drawn by the scent of blood like predators drawn to fresh prey. Long Chen sensed their killing intent as their malicious aura fixated on him. Through it, he felt a chilling sense of doom. You dreg of the 9-star line, there is no escape for you today, exclaimed an arrogant voice. Suddenly, the sky was torn apart, revealing a figure. With a casual wave of his hand, he enveloped the battlefield in an extremely strange net, which snared even the laws of heaven and earth, locking them in place. The figure moved with such speed that Long Chen couldn't react in time. The net closed around him, tightening like a vice. Seeing Long Chen trapped, the man laughed in triumph. Ha ha ha! This fool is mine! Wretched traitors! Long Chen's voice seethed with hatred, and his eyes blazed with fury. This enemy was no foreign devil. He was a human, one of his own. Long Chen then realized why the human race had taken such immense losses in the Primal Chaos War. These bloody traitors were the main culprits. The traitor's face twisted in satisfaction as he pulled on the net, certain that Long Chen was fully trapped. But then he hesitated, his smile faltering. The net wouldn't budge. With a roar, Long Chen gripped the net and tore it apart, shredding the artifact that could bind even the heavenly Daos. What? The man's eyes went wide with disbelief. His mouth hung open as he struggled to comprehend how anyone could tear apart his divine weapon so effortlessly. Boom! Before he could react, Long Chen's kick landed with a force that tore through space itself. Astral energy surged outward, obliterating the man and leaving nothing but a gaping black hole in the void. Not even a drop of his blood touched the ground. He was completely erased. Yet this brutal display didn't deter Long Chen's enemies. Countless figures rushed toward him, closing in like an unrelenting tide. An enormous figure wielding a colossal saber charged at Long Chen, the sound of his weapon slicing through the heavens, sending chills down spines. The barbarian race. You've actually also betrayed the human race. Long Chen's fury ignited as he sensed the giant's barbaric aura. The giant of the barbarian race roared defiantly. Who do you think you are? Why should we let you lead our barbarian race? Only the fools in the blood branch still follow you. The rest of us know better. Boom! The barbarian giant's massive saber came crashing down, but Long Chen raised his hand, catching the blade mid-swing. Stars swirled around his palm, and the ground quaked from the sheer force of the clash. I am wrong. You didn't betray the human race. Long Chen growled, his voice low and cold. You betrayed the blood barbarian race, your king. What a fool. The blood barbarian race hasn't been our king for a long time, sneered the barbarian giant. We now follow a new ruler, the great battle barbarian race. The blood barbarian king already followed your 9-star master to his death. So it's over for you. All that awaits you now is death. He pressed down with his saber, muscles bulging as he poured all his strength into the strike. Yet, despite his power, the blade couldn't budge Long Chen. For some reason, hearing that the blood barbarian king had perished in combat sent a sharp pang through Long Chen's heart. In his mind, wild, simple, honest face appeared, filling him with an overwhelming sense of loss. Die! Long Chen shouted, and his killing intent erupted. Boom! The giant saber shattered in his grip, releasing a powerful shockwave that blasted the barbarian expert backward, blood spraying from his mouth. Bang! Long Chen kicked a shard of the broken saber, launching it like a lightning bolt. It struck the barbarian's head, blowing a large hole through his skull. After that, the giant fell like a toppled mountain, his eyes frozen in confusion and disbelief, unable to comprehend how he had died. Kill! Long Chen's roar reverberated through the battlefield as his blazing astral energy flared, his eyes scarlet with rage. Already in a frenzy, he charged straight toward the swarm of enemies without waiting for them to reach him. Boom! Long Chen's fist struck a giant shield that looked like a city gate, and the impact sent his blood chi flipping inside of him, causing him to cough out blood. This wasn't an ordinary shield. Ancient beast runes were carved across its surface, and it was wielded by a greater demon. Though Long Chen had defeated dozens of powerful foes, the shield managed to stop him. Be suppressed! Shouted the demon, forming hand seals and hurling the colossal shield at Long Chen. 1-star starfall, Long Chen shouted, raising his palm. To his surprise, a big star sphere shot forth. 3 feet wide this time, much larger than the fist-sized sphere he'd used before, crashed into the shield. Boom! Unable to endure the star sphere's power, the shield exploded into smithereens along with its owner. 2 stars, Flying Rainbow. 3 stars, Soul Chaser. 4 stars, Devil Prison. Long Chen's roars echoed as he unleashed his strongest attacks, consuming astral energy at a shocking rate. The battlefield shook as 4 immense star pillars appeared and converged, crushing countless foes beneath them. Boom! The 4 pillars exploded when they gathered, unleashing a wave of astral energy that obliterated even more lifeforms. The heart of the battlefield instantly became much emptier. 9-star heirs truly are formidable. I'll take you down myself. A cold voice rang out as sharp sword chi sliced through the void toward Long Chen's back. Long Chen deflected it with his palm but felt a sharp sting as a deep cut opened on his hand. He was shocked. This sword chi was as potent as Yu Zifeng's. Before him stood a man with an icy expression. Emblazoned on his chest was a circular emblem that was surrounded by intricate, glowing runes. Within this design, 2 larger characters stood out. They were ancient Jili characters that Long Chen recognized immediately. High Heaven. The High Heaven Sword God's disciple, Luo Zishu, will face you, announced that man coldly. There's only one sword god. When did this high heaven sword god appear? Did he just declare himself one? Long Chen scoffed. Long Chen had studied the ancient texts and knew that since the primal chaos era, there had been only one true sword god across the 9 heavens and 10 lands. Known simply as the sword god, he was the eternal deity of the sword Tao, nameless, revered, and transcendent. He was the guiding spirit whose blessing empowered them all. Long Chen had once spoken to Yu Zifeng about this mysterious figure. Yu Zifeng held an unwavering belief in the sword god's existence, often sensing his presence as a guiding force. But now, another supposed sword god had emerged, calling himself the High Heaven Sword God. This title contradicted the history Long Chen knew. Ignorant fool, the so-called sword god of yours is long dead. My master, the High Heaven Sword God, is the only sword god across the heavens now, sneered Luo Zishu. I won't waste words on a dead man. You're as good as dead. Luo Zishu's sword hummed ominously, cutting through the very fabric of the heavenly dais as it thrust forward in a blinding strike. The chilling surge of killing intent made Long Chen feel as if he'd been plunged into an iceberg, his skin prickling from the deadly sword chi. This was a terrifying sword cultivator, definitely the most fearsome he had met to date other than Yu Zifeng. What made this moment even more dangerous was that this attack was unavoidable. Dodging would throw Long Chen into a defensive position, leaving him vulnerable to an unending tide of strikes. In a battle like this, evasion would mean certain death. Boom! Long Chen unleashed a punch, his fist blazing with starlight. The sword chi shattered on impact, but to his shock, a cut appeared on his fist as the sword chi sliced through his astral energy. Until now, his 8-star battle armor had shielded him from every weapon he faced, making him nearly invincible against even the strongest foes. But Luo Zishu's sword chi pierced those defenses with ease. Throughout history, sword cultivators were famed as the unrivaled masters of offense, wielding the purest, most lethal power among all cultivators. No one had ever questioned this fact. Their sword Tao transcended the laws of the 10,000 Taos, and when cultivated to the pinnacle, it could cut through all laws in this world. Long Chen was injured in this clash, but he didn't mind. He advanced, and each step landed him in a strange, almost untraceable position. It was as if he were both dodging and weaving through some unseen path. On the 8th step, he abruptly appeared right in front of Luo Zishu. Luo Zishu's expression shifted from icy confidence to alarm. He leaped back, fully aware of the sword cultivator's Achilles heel, poor defense. If anyone managed to get close to them, even a single blow could be fatal. But as Luo Zishu retreated, he suddenly felt the air grow thick around him, as though he were moving through water. His movements grew heavier and more sluggish. Most frightening of all, despite leaping away, he was actually moving toward Long Chen. 5 stars, Voidbreaker! Long Chen shouted, sending 5 stars speeding toward Luo Zishu. In response, Luo Zishu stamped on the air, launching himself back as his sword slashed the incoming stars in half, sending them spinning past him without detonating. Sword cultivators were indeed terrifying. Luo Zishu's sword chi sliced through Long Chen's 5 blazing stars without even triggering an explosion, a feat that underscored just how heaven-defying a sword cultivator's power could be. Yet, despite this success, there was no satisfaction in Luo Zishu's expression, as 6 more stars had appeared around him. 6 stars, God seal! Long Chen shouted, and the 6 stars blazed with blinding light. Instantly, the space around Luo Zishu froze, trapping him. You! Luo Zishu's face twisted in shock. Only now did he realize how seamlessly he'd fallen into Long Chen's trap. That last attack had been nothing but bait, a setup for this devastating technique. 6 stars, God Seal was the advanced version of 4 stars, Devil Prison. It was more covert and had greater sealing power. Once caught inside, escape was virtually impossible. Long Chen remembered how this same technique had nearly crushed his body during the 9-star trial. He refused to believe a sword cultivator's weaker physique could withstand it. Long Chen's hands moved through a series of seals, locking the 6 stars in place around Luo Zishu. 3 stars hovered above, 3 below, rotating in opposite directions as their gravitational force tightened. Luo Zishu's body trembled violently, and blood sprayed from his mouth as he struggled against the crushing pressure. Just as Luo Zishu was about to be crushed to death, the 6 stars trapping him shattered. Luo Zishu was flung free, a blur streaking out of the seal. Long Chun struck out at the void, his foot slicing through the air, but he missed the one who had disrupted his technique. His eyes narrowed as he spotted a woman holding a thin, deadly sword, staring at him with an icy glare. Life Hunter Race. The sight of that sword made Long Chun clench his teeth so hard they nearly shattered.